Here comes the sun. Do-do-do-do. It's all right. Da-da. It's funny because considering what we're talking about this episode, it's really fucking rainy here.
Today has been the first day. Actually, it was sunny here for like weeks.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems very dreary over there.
it normally is like we've had like quite good weather, but
So have
the
we.
last like 3 4 weeks has been terrible.
There's just been this big, there's this big rainstorm, and it's like just been pouring out like the past like couple hours. So it's funny considering it's been normally like very hot and sunshine, and even while the episodes me and Brett recorded, I was like dripping in sweat, I was like I couldn't even like concentrate. And now it's like this nice cool rainy day, and we're talking about strange vacations.
I thought you were gonna have some like weird thing set up on your soundboard.
Here comes the sun. That's all I could. But yes, welcome everybody back to the show. I hope you love us. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why you're listening.
We're just
Uh,
chilling out at the beach. I'm having a nice cold can of moobs.
what's with you
Cheers.
and Heineken? I'm having one of these. This is fucking delicious. I'm a sucker for like I'm like sick of beer, right? But I'm going
It's
to
some weird shit now. Wait and see everybody. He's gonna be like, it's like Samuel Beckett fucking
uh,
something.
vodka Friday, bro.
Okay, that sounds kind of nice.
It's be this, be that, do this, do that, VF that, vodka Friday that. It's a thorny beach. Oh, kind of funny considering what we're talking about. A peach raspberry frolic. Weird.
That sounds pretty nice. Have you ever heard of this? This is a new drink.
Heineken.
Heineken. Yeah, it's this new thing out. It's really nice.
Yeah, didn't Bill Gates invest into that? Isn't that his invention,
We
his
see.
creation?
I've bought into his subscription service now, so I already got vaxxed up. So time to
Yeah,
drink moobs for the rest of my life.
I know. We're talking about strange vacations. And it's kind of fun because in 2 days, I will be going on my own vacation. Actually, I'm going to the cottage. We're recording what today is a fucking Tuesday. I'm going on the Friday. So I'm pretty stoked for that. So this is pretty exciting to talk about, you know, considering, where I'm going. And we talked about wanting to do this anyway.
Before we get into it, I don't know how much you care to get into the details of this, but when you say I'm going to the cottage, like set the scene for me as somebody who has no context as to like what that means.
So we travel. We used to get it, we used to for the for it was like 5 6 years ago the same cottage, which I do miss. It was a nice cottage, and you drive like 3 hours up north, and then you get in the cottage country, and there's like nothing but like forest and stuff like that. Hopefully, they don't burn them to the ground with fucking dews, direct energy weapons. But it's like beautiful out there, and then you start seeing like ads for cottage stuff, like boats and all that stuff. So that's when you start getting more up north. But we used to like it was on the by this place called Burley Falls, and we used to like go through this like very dirt road. And actually, you ever seen Cheaper by the Dozen too?
Yes, of
With
course.
Eugene Levy and
Mhm.
Steve Martin. That cottage that they filmed that was literally like 2 3 cottages down from the one we were at. Not
Okay,
as
so that
good though. We
that's
didn't get
kind of
this
that,
huge
but that's
cottage.
kind of like what I should picture.
Kind of, yeah. And we used to have this like rustic old cabin, considering it was next to some very rich looking cabins, like cottages. Like there was a glass house looking one, and that one's huge. The one that they filmed the movie at, and they had like a little restaurant. And they had like their signatures from Eugene Levy and Steve Martin. And it was like you'd go into this like kind of old cabin. It was like had like a back room, which was nice for me to smoke weed out of and stuff like that. And then you go in little kitchen, kind of wholesome. And then it had a deck wrapped around, and it would like go right out to the water. So there's a diving board you could just jump into the lake into, which was pretty fun. A little dock and all that stuff, but they've been fighting over the road, the municipality or some bullshit. So now we went to one last year because Chelsea's sister had a kid, so we don't want him falling off the deck. That would not be good. So now it's like one that you walk into the water. So it has this huge grass like in the back and stuff like that, and then you kind of like step off, and they have stone ledges you can kind of walk into the water at, and it's beautiful, right? I'll be reading. I have my Howard Zinn book. I'm gonna read. The Power of Government Cannot Suppress. I have my David Icke book. I'll probably try to get through that. It is It's enjoyable, but it's a little tough. I understand why people are like, it's a tough read to read Dave Likes books. And then I also have an Alan Watts book. That's just for fun though. That's just like spiritual guru fucking Buddhism bullshit.
I like
I'm on a
that
mission.
was going to be my follow-up question was like, what kind of things do you like to do when you go to the cottage?
So I can't do high doses of the mushrooms I would like to do because Chelsea would not want that because they don't know that I do it. Hopefully they don't listen to this, but it's like, and I'm like, what can I just tell them? Why can't I just be myself? Right? Like, I don't think it's a big deal. People see psychedelics as this like scary bad thing, and they don't understand how powerful it is to change the human consciousness and brain and mental health and all that stuff, right? But I'll be taking microdoses, wearing my sunglasses, so I don't see my fucking large pupils. But it's
Like
mostly a
Mr. Barnes when he comes out of the fucking reactor.
what does he say? We are love, love, whatever the hell he says. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, because your eyes can get like that. When me and my buddy did mushrooms at the bachelor party, like we were both like. We came down, we weren't tripping anymore, and I was like, "Man, your fucking pupils are still huge." It's like it took over his whole eye almost. I was like, "Whoa!" But like, we mostly just hang out. We may go on a boat and go for a boat ride. Mostly just hang out, drink, hang out with the baby now, which is a lot of fun because he's like getting older. He's like one, a little over one. And so we'll do stuff like that. Read. I like to read a lot and I'll listen to podcasts and just chill by the water. I'm going to try to swim a lot and maybe try to master the paddleboard because I did not
Whoa, I
do that
thought you
last
were going to say something else there. Whoa.
year.
Because you did stall for a sec. You said, and maybe try, I want to really try and master.
Yeah. Master the paddleboard is my way of saying that I'll jerk off in the washroom when
What we
nobody's
need to
around.
do there is somebody needs to clip that and then do that thing where you say master and then it has that weird Microsoft Sam voice that
Bait.
goes like bait.
Yeah. It's I'm excited for this episode. It should be fairly fun. Longtime listeners will know that we did a Strange Vacations episode like at the very beginning of the show when Justin was still a host, which seems like decades ago. It was only like a couple of years. It just seems like forever ago. Look, we're at the beach. Oh, I thought I edited it to make it fit the whole thing, but we're kind of in the water now. We're on the
That's kind
beach,
of
everybody.
nice. I love
Yeah,
how right. So we're doing a Strange Vacations episode, and you look like you're somewhere tropical with the color and like the hat and
yeah.
everything, and then I look like fucking Uncle Fester
Yeah, with your blue lighting. Just
with
wait
fucking
because you will
sunburn.
become Uncle Fester pretty
Do
soon.
do I look like because someone said this to me the other day that this looks like it's fake and I'm not actually here. It's like me standing in front of a green screen.
Kind of, just because the lighting is on you and you have the lighting up the background, my lights are in front of me. Someone could think that. I could see why someone would.
Yeah, they were like, "Is that real?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And they were like, "No, it looks like really bad, like CGI."
Weird. It's real. You just go walk over to it and then you fall into the green screen. I want a green screen for my chair just for some fun shit for the show. But
That'd be so funny. I could
I
only
hope
imagine the shit you would do with that.
I know. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer so far and stuff like that. We're kind of bringing it to a close. There's a lot of actually fun stuff over at Class Horrorcast for stuff that we're adding in near September, and there's stuff still to come. So be prepared for that. But this was kind of fun. I kind of like doing some topical episodes a lot of times, and the fans know this around any time that we can. We've done one Valentine's Day episode. Sure, we'll do another. So I like doing things kind of topical. It's always fun and to give the fans, and not a lot of shows do that. So I thought it would be appropriate. And I actually have probably another episode or two that would be kind of summer targeted, like towards the season and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff coming. So when you plan your next trip, make sure you take warning from many tales of the people who vanished on vacation. Instead of removing themselves from work and stress, the stress of the world, people disappear on trips, remove themselves from the entire world entirely, vanishing in the midst of what should be paradise. Sometimes things go really wrong and affect people's lives forever. So let's talk about some stories of people who set out on vacation and came back with harrowing the horrifying, let's just say that, horrifying tales to tell, or they never came back at all.
I was gonna say I don't think any of the poor motherfuckers that I'm gonna talk about. I don't think any of them came back.
No, no, nobody. I have two cases of like some fun things kind of bring in the episode, but yeah. And I don't know if you have you ever had a strange vacation. Everyone knows mine, where my friend got stuck in Cuba. If you don't, if you don't, if you haven't heard me fucking talk about my Shadow People story 1,000 times, then go back to the Shadow People episode and you'll hear the whole story of how my vacation got turned upside down very quickly when a Russian guy grabbed my friend's balls. You ever had anything happen like that?
Um, no, no, but I have had. I suppose. I don't know if you could call it a strange vacation. I had a pretty wild vacation in 2016. I actually got stuck in Orlando during Hurricane Matthew.
Oh, really?
And our plane was the second last plane. So we have Aer Lingus, which is an Irish like
Aer
um
Lingus?
Aer Lingus. Yeah.
Wow, what a
It's
weird
like the Irish fucking whatever.
Aer
They're like
Lingus.
international, like, but
Yeah.
there was us and British Airways were the last two flights to leave uh Orlando International Airport before they had like a statewide curfew because the
Yeah.
storm was coming. And like when we get to the airport, like, and I'm noticing like anybody else I know that's in Orlando at the time is like, yeah, no, we got told to stay in our hotel and like not leave and like definitely don't go to the airport because flights are not going to be allowed to go. I was like, weird. It's like we got told to show up at the airport and it'll be fine. And we get to the airport and like the entire airport is basically closed, bar like one corridor of lights that lead to like our gate. I'm like, this is really bizarre that this is happening. And we get to the gate, and basically what happens is a flight comes from Dublin to Orlando, and then they disembark or whatever. They clean the plane, fuel the plane there, and then we go from Orlando back to Dublin.
Yeah.
And as those people are getting off the plane, I was sitting. It was like, I swear to God, it was like Final Destination. I was sitting with my back to like the big glass windows, and the plane was
Mhm.
like right here. And I don't know what, maybe like I stood up and I was just kind of wandering around, and I looked out the window and I was like, "What's all that black smoke?" I was like, "Weird." So then I get closer and I look out, and the plane is on fire.
What the really?
The
Your
plane
plane.
is on fire, dude, right before we get onto it. And then everybody
Wow.
starts screaming and freaking out. I swear to God, right? I have no
And
shame
then
in
you
saying
wake
this.
up in your chair and you're like, "Everybody get off the plane." It's like Final
I was
Destination.
like pushing fucking grannies and shit onto the ground to get away because everyone thought the plane was gonna explode and kill everybody. So like
That's
everybody just starts
fucked.
barreling up this hallway. And
Yeah.
I'm like pushing like all women out of the way and shit. I'm like, fuck you, get out of my
I don't
way.
I don't I don't I don't blame you. And in times of desperation, people get desperate,
Yeah,
man.
I completely just like lost it. And basically what happened was the I must maybe someday when we do just like a random live stream, I have all the live stream and clips and stuff I took of it and like all
Yeah,
the
we should
different
have
things
done
that
that
went
for
on.
this year. For if we can fit it in, we'll try to. But
Um
we're busy bees over at Strange Brew.
but yeah, and then from there it just went downhill. We were supposed to get like evacuated by the National Guard. They wanted to bring us like 4 hours away to like put us in some football stadium.
Weird.
I was like, I don't want to go to a football stadium. They're like, well, we can only put women and children into hotels, and all the men need to go together with the National Guard.
Why don't we do
So
that with
like,
immigration? It seems like a lot of military aged men that come here.
and I was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, I'm good for that. And like somehow we
Weird.
managed to get a hotel, but
We'll huddle you in a football stadium, but you have to play football for our enjoyment while you're here.
and we get put up in this hotel, and it's just like it's a piece of shit. It's like something of a horror movie. Yeah, we spent a week locked in a hotel room that had no food, no anything.
Wild,
Yeah,
really?
dude, it was terrible.
Is
And then
this
like
you and your woman, your ex woman?
no, it was me and
Whoa,
one of the guys I used to hang out with at the time, and we're just sitting
really?
in this room. I have videos from
Jerking
like
each other off.
inside of the
I'm so
room,
bored,
and
man.
there's like no electricity, and we're just because obviously living in Ireland, we've never experienced like anything like that. So
Like
to be in the
blackouts
air,
or like
well, just the whole thing, like the whole hurricane
yeah,
thing, and how serious it got.
yeah.
And like then when you start to see like the fucking army and shit, they're like, yeah, you need to get in that like big military truck, and like they're gonna drive you 4 hours away and lock you in a football stadium because everyone's gonna die.
That's fucking
And I'm
that is
like,
horrifying.
from a small town in Ireland, we're like, whoa, what's going on? I just want to go home. I'm good.
Much as I like Florida, maybe we should just like they have a lot of freedom, but just cut that dick off. It's the dick of the states. But it's I don't know what it's like to, and I'm sure one day I will with all the weather modification and the things that are happening. But we're pretty lucky where we are, and you're even luckier if you go further up north. But I just it must be scary. We've had tornadoes here like once or twice, but nothing like wild,
Yeah,
like that.
I wasn't a huge fan of it, be
Yeah,
totally
I
honest with
wouldn't
you.
be either.
And
Yeah.
then actually, so to finish that whole story, when things finally calm down and they rebook us on flights to go home.
When they calm down.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to curb my Irish accent.
No, it's fine.
Um,
That's why Jimmy, the Chelsea stepdad, he's Scottish, and he always says, "Keep calm."
that sounds about right, Jimmy. I like that, Jimmy. Um, yeah, they rebook us on like flights to get home or whatever.
Hmm.
And when we get the email, I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to JFK. I was like, look, if anything
I'm gonna get
fucks up,
shot in the head.
I was like, if anything fucks up, um, like my aunt and uncle live in New York, so they can come and get us,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah.
just go stay with them for a few days till we figure out what's gonna happen.
Good idea. Yeah.
And then the dude I'm with is like, he was like, JFK, and he's like, no, my thing says ATL. What's that? And I'm like, oh, you're going to Atlanta, Georgia, then, so we're not going to the
Weird.
same place.
That's fucked. Cause where's he from?
Like both of us were coming back here. Like we're both from,
Weird.
yeah.
Weird. He put you on like you're
And
going
they
to
put us on
Atlanta,
two.
man.
Yeah, they sent him to Atlanta and they sent me to New York. And then they were like,
That's
and then we
weird.
have to get like connecting flights from there. So we get split up, and I'm flying out first. So we say our goodbyes, whatever. See you later. Jerk him off a bit. I go and get on this plane. We are taxiing on the runway, like in the queue
Yeah.
of like, because obviously there's like a pile up of flights trying to get back out of fucking Orlando at this point.
Yeah.
And I have video of this as well on my phone. As we're sitting on the runway, I remember sitting there going, "That's a really strange smell of like burning or
Yeah.
smoke." And I'm like, "No, it's probably just like in my head or whatever, whatever." And then other people start to like it. You can hear everybody going like, can you smell that? What's that smell?" And then people are like, "I think I see smoke." And then
That
out of
that
nowhere,
feeling must have made you panic.
dude, I swear to God, right? That's
Heart
why
in
I
your
took. I don't know
stomach.
why I thought it was the right thing to do, but I took my phone out straight away. I was like, I was literally talking to the phone, and I was like, I cannot believe this shit. I'm about to die in a fucking plane for the
Not my
second time.
yeah, not my story, but I'll tell this very quickly. One of my cousins went to Japan, and traveled there with his buddy, and I was friends with both of them. Like obviously my cousin, like we don't hang out as often. I wasn't allowed to go to family functions because I was not shut it up. So it disconnect started like it seems like a lot of family. Like I don't see a lot of my cousins and people like that anymore because everyone got divided, which is all part of a tactic, I'm sure. But my cousin went to Japan, said it was like crazy. Like there's a party downtown Japan or whatever, like the main city in Japan. I should know this, but there's like this huge, there's like 4,000 people at this like raver, like in this city and stuff like that. Wild shit. So he rented a motorcycle, okay, and then proceeded to crash the motorcycle
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
get hurt. And then he was in the hospital, and his buddy at the time, and I know this kid too, Neil. Neil left him there. He's like,
Left
fuck
as
this.
in like left the hospital or
No,
left
left
Japan?
like Japan. Was like, good luck.
Okay.
And then I remember like, which is crazy. I don't know what he was on, but this was like years ago. And when MSN still existed, um, so I remember, and this was like early 20s type shit. And I don't know what, like how long that existed or how long I had that, but something like that, or email or something. I was like, what's going on, man? And he's like, I'm just in Japan, in the hospital. Like, and Neil left. And I was like, whoa, that's fucking
That's
crazy.
got to be even freakier back then because you have
I
like
know.
even less access. Like I feel like now,
Mm.
if you've got a cell phone, you're pretty connected to most things. You can probably make something
Yeah.
work or you can contact whoever you need to contact. But like back then, like things like MSN,
Yeah.
fucking
I know.
email are like very hit and miss. It's like,
Co-
well, if somebody doesn't check their
Yeah.
email,
We have to do a rant episode. If the fans want to go mainstream, like it will, but at least for the Patreon, this is why I always say subscribe. There's like so much stuff on the Patreon, and we do it as cheap, more cheap than any other podcast out there. But I want to do a rant episode talking about the '90s and early 2000s and like what it was like to go. I want to do an episode about emo shit because I just want to dress up like I was emo again.
Oh yeah, I
I
need to
just
do
want to
that.
do it for fun, and if we can get Billy to go along with it, that'd be very funny. Billy kind of missed that era a bit, but let's get to it. So the first story, visiting Victoria Falls in southern Africa is a dream for many, but 22-year-old Aaron Langworthy, it turned into a nightmare. The Australian, she was bungee jumping off Victoria Falls, which is this. I would not want to be bungee jumping off of this. This looks frightening. It is a massive waterfall.
Yeah, that
So
wouldn't be for me.
yeah, off this bridge while visiting Zambia. I think that's. Did you say it like that? I could fucking butcher some of these.
Yeah, no,
Zambia,
that sounds right to me. Zambia.
Zambia, Zambia. In 2012, when the cord snapped and she plunged 364 feet. For all the listeners in the States, 111 meters into crocodile infested the Zambesi River below. She was swept down the swollen river with her feet still bound together by 10 meters, 30 feet of rope, and spent 40 minutes in the water until she finally managed to grab onto some rocks. And an employee of the bungee jump company pulled her onto the riverbank. Langworth like Worthy, what a weird last name. What's your name? Aaron. Aaron was taken to Victorian Falls Clinic in Zimbabwe, and but didn't reach the clinic until 5 hours after she jumped. Though her lungs were partially collapsed and her body was covered in bruises, Aaron didn't suffer any serious injuries and returned home 2 weeks later. She had been the 106th person to jump off that bridge that day, and it was just not her lucky day.
See,
This
that's
is why I
why,
don't
like,
do this shit, Billy.
yeah,
That's why I don't want to jump out of a plane, Billy.
I nearly done that a few years ago in Florida. Again, I think when I was going there, that place just seemed like the Wild West. So all those things
Yeah,
seemed like good ideas to me. But I like in hindsight, I'm actually glad that I didn't do it because a guy that I used to, an American guy actually, who had moved to Ireland like when he was like a kid
yeah.
with his parents. He was always like a kind of a skater dude and always like into that kind of stuff, if you get what I mean. But it was
Yeah.
never good enough to just like go to a skate
A
park and do
thrill
stuff.
junkie. He's a thrill
Yeah, like
junkie.
he was always a bit like, oh well, why would I go to a skate park when I can like jump off the side of this house on my board? And I'm like, why do you always have to be that guy? But he ended up anyway. Later in life, he moved to Australia.
Broke both of his fucking ankles and his knees and
Oh no, 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 no! This gets much worse. This gets much worse. He went to Australia and he trained to be a skydiving instructor or whatever
yeah.
you call it, like the guy who goes with people attached to him.
Yep.
Done that for years, and like I want to say right before COVID, he done a jump and something went wrong and he hit the ground and died with no parachute.
Wow. See, this is why I don't want to do this, Billy. Because
Yep.
he was trying to influence me and be like, we're doing this for your bachelor party. I'm like, no. And he enjoyed fucking with me because I'm not a fan of heights. And he's like, I'm scared of heights too, man. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not risking
I
because I
actually
don't
want
have
to get married.
control of that. Yeah, I don't have control. Like, that's the idea, right? It's like I love horror movies because I have control over that. Even messing around with the Ouija board to some extent, but an episode for another time when we were out last week and I was on mushrooms, a little like a very light strain, but also I do them so often that my tolerance builds up so quick. And we were watching The Craft, and then we were talking about our property, where we live, how long it's existed in this town, which is like forever. And like what it was beforehand. And like we've in the house that I'm in right now, a baby has died. Bunch of dead cats were found in this place, and like her dad took it over. The next door neighbor just died recently, stuff like that. And it's just like,
That all sounds
oh
like
yeah,
bad juju.
So then I was sitting there out back, and we're like, really, our property stretches far back where the fire pit is, and then you can look back at the house. And I was just like getting creeped out, and I was like, man, I'm actually like creeped out. And I kept, like, and I was tripping a bit still, and I'm like, man, am I gonna see somebody like walk by in the fucking bushes or some shit?
I swear to
Eh,
God, like stuff like that, even as a I guess what you would classify as a grown man, that
yeah,
stuff still makes me shit my pants if I get like
I know.
freaked out
Especially
enough.
once, like in the future, if you come over here, we'll definitely have room to stay sooner than later when we like start like renovating the house and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a wild time. You should just move to Canada. You know, people have made it work. You know,
You know what, right? I was all up for Canada, and then I met
I know.
you, and you weren't really selling me on Canada.
No, it's an authoritarian communist style country, but it's okay right now. It might get a little worse, but they're trying to turn your kids into something that they're not in schools, and yeah, it's not fun here, especially in Ontario.
See, I'd like to just
It's getting
move
pretty
there
bad.
and like just live on a property somewhere and just have nobody bother me.
Listen, I will build a shack out back of my property. What you
That
organize
that
back
I
there
would prefer
next to
that
the chickens that I want.
than have to like conform to any like weirdness.
No, I and most Canadians are against the same things that I am. It's just gone too far. Most Canadians don't recognize their country anymore, which is quite sad. So let's get to the next one before we dive into some of the disappearances and who knows. But this one's just fucked because I just want to mention it. British tourist Rochelle Harris was on a flight back from a holiday in Peru. That I would love to go to Peru. That's where you get ayahuasca trips and you do stuff like that. In 2013, when she began experiencing a powerful headache, shooting pains in her face, she also began hearing strange scratching noises and discharge from her ear. On returning home, 27-year-old Rochelle Harris paid a visit to the doctor. After initially being blamed on maybe an ear infection, doctors soon discovered 8 large maggots wiggling around inside Harris's ear canal. Ew, ew, ew. Want to see something really gross?
That for me would just be like, because that's what I'm picturing.
That's what they look like, really. Do I have that? Oh, I didn't save it. Man, if anyone, oh no, I wanted to freak you out that image. How did I not have it? I fucking got an. I mean, so there's an image of like what maggots look close up, and it is disgusting. I couldn't even look at it. It was like making me feel ill. But it's pretty much like this. I'm
The
pretty
the
sure.
idea of that shit being like in your ear,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is a zoomed in thing of a maggot. They look like that. If you like Google what a maggot looks like
so
close up,
fucking
it is
gross. Like
disgusting. So she remembers walking through a swarm of flies while hiking on her vacation, and one had been buzzing in her ear. But sorry, I just lost my thing. Um, she remembers hearing this buzzing, but once she waved the flies away, she thought nothing more of it. The insect's a New World screw fly, which generally lays larvae in wounds of warm blooded animals. Once they hatched 24 hours later, the maggots chewed a 12 millimeter, half an inch hole in Rochelle's ear canal.
sick, absolutely terrible.
The
I would just like
ordeal
just chop
didn't
my
cause
fucking
any
head off.
permanent damage, but
Chop my head off. Kill me.
oh, so fucked, man. All right. Do you want I'll throw it to you for maybe the first disappearance on vacation. I don't know who you have first, but is it one of the more famous ones?
Um, yeah, like I feel like upon looking at them, all of them are actually a
Fairly
lot more,
famous.
yeah, a lot more famous than I thought.
Oh yeah.
I guess we'll go with the I don't know how you would pronounce it, Natalie,
Natalie Holloway.
Natalie,
Natalie.
I would call it
What would you
Natalie.
pronounce? Natalie?
Yeah, Natalie,
Natalie?
Natalie,
Natalie. No, I knew it, Natalie. She okay.
Natalie.
I knew Lally when I was growing up, and we go to the dances and stuff like that. And she was like one of those chicks that wore makeup before other chicks did. And she kind of reminded me of Verusa Balk or whatever from the
Oh,
Craft.
nice. Did you kiss her or anything?
Actually, we're at one dance, and me and my buddy had a contest of who could get the most kisses. And
Okay.
and I don't know why we're like teenagers. I'm like I would get like really for I found out about weed, I'd get really stoned. And I just remember like you be in a crowd of people. That's how our dances were back in the day. There'd be like a mosh pit of people trying to get into the dance. It was like dances that were like sponsored by the community on like a week, a Friday night or whatever, right? And we had a bet to see who could get the most kisses. Well, my girlfriend at the time was outside and couldn't get into the dance and was drunk, and I was very high and kind of drunk. And then we went around, and she was the only one that started wearing makeup and lipstick. So when I came out of the dance, I had lipstick all over my face. And I could just hear her yelling drunk, and me and my friends were like, I gotta get out of here, hide me, man. Because she saw me. And I was like, and all the like lipstick all over my face was not good. I was not a nice boy.
That sounds pretty hot.
Yeah, I wasn't a nice guy though when I was a
Yeah, it's
teenager.
rude to be fair.
Yeah, it's very rude.
Not this Natalie though. You didn't know her, right?
No. Maybe I
That's okay.
did though.
Um,
She is
okay,
very good looking though.
she is. I'll give her that.
Yes.
I was gonna start making a heap of jokes and like really controversial things, but I think I'll just keep my mouth shut.
She has blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah. Pretty
So,
German ancestors. Just kidding. I don't know if she's
um,
German.
when Natalie Holloway, who was born in October 1986, went missing during a high school graduation trip to Aruba, it sparked an international frenzy with hundreds of volunteers, investigators, the FBI, Dutch soldiers, all united in their efforts to find the missing girl. Despite several witnesses of her whereabouts on the eve of her disappearance, she was never found and is currently presumed to be dead.
Can I say
10
something?
different. Mhm.
Can we get that much of an effort for missing black children or indigenous women? You know, like can we not?
No, no, boring. No, we have
Yeah,
no
got to
interest.
be a blonde haired, blue eyed white woman to get the National Guard
Yep.
involved.
10 different people were arrested during the investigation, but all were later released, and no one has been formally charged. Natalie Holloway was reported missing on May 30th, 2005, after she failed to report to the airport for her trip to return home from Aruba. Her packed luggage and passport were found in her hotel room. Her classmates and friends reported last seeing her leave Carlos and Charlie's restaurant and nightclub with
Hmm.
three locals. A 17-year-old, I don't know how you pronounce this dude's name because he's pretty famous as well.
It's the best
For all the
Spanish.
wrong reasons. Yeah, that I I've seen it pronounced like loads of different ways, like Johan Vandersloot,
Johan sounds. I think that's what it is.
um, and brothers
Johan.
Deepak Kalpo
Yeah, I think I'd
and
say Deepak.
Satish. The three men were questioned and said that they dropped her off at the hotel, forcing police to eventually release them without more concrete evidence to the contrary. But amid their subsequent changing stories and additional eyewitness testimonies, the men were each arrested several more times throughout the investigation. Vandersloot has remained the primary suspect in the case.
It is.
Like this dude is ballsy, right? I like we'll see it in a second, like, but it just I
I
don't want to
just
say I have to
she is
admire.
a beautiful blonde, blue-eyed lady. I just picture like, what is it? And everyone's like panicking. It's like, what is it? Is it another black baby missing? We don't got time for that. It's like it's a beautiful cheerleading blonde, blue-eyed woman, and everyone's like, all right, all hands on
Oh,
deck.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah. So it's just loud
Um,
because I know that like this happens often and nobody cares until it's, and I'll say that a white lady.
the search for her was extensive. During the first few days of the search, the Aruban government gave thousands of civil servants the day off to help with the search efforts. 50
Everybody
Dutch,
find this white lady.
yeah, I know,
Very
right?
sensitive. I'm sorry.
50 Dutch Marines were also deployed to the island to sweep the shorelines, and three Dutch F-16s were specially fitted with infrared imaging devices to scan the land for
I'm surprised they
freshly
have
dug
that.
graves,
The
which is
Dutch are
fucking,
very cheap.
but which is wild, like that they went to that extent. Despite their efforts and over $3 million spent on the investigation, which is over 40% of the Aruban police operational budget, her body was never recovered. So then
In
her,
Aruba, they have Dutch people. Weird.
her mother then, I think this is so, her mother, Beth, has criticized the investigation, which has been accused of alleged bribery, cover ups, and corruption, and she continues to keep
Sure.
hope for the return of her daughter. She has since partnered in founding the Natalie Holloway Resource Center, which offers aid and support to families of those who have recently gone missing. Blah, blah, blah. Theories abound as to what has actually happened to her. Uh,
What my
Vanders,
theory? Sex trade.
yeah,
You know what I mean? She's a,
it's,
beautiful white
and she was
lady with
17 at the time as well.
17. Yeah, that would,
I want to say,
this is
is
what
that
they're
right?
looking for.
86, 96. Sorry, no, she wasn't. She was a little bit older, which makes it
Uh,
even weirder. And she was 19 and that Vandersloot dude was 17.
yeah, that's bizarre.
Weird.
Mhm.
Theories as to what actually happened. So, Vandersloot changed his story of the events several times after stating that he and the brothers dropped her off at the hotel. He was later recorded saying that he and Holloway spent some time on the beach, where he left her alone by her own will. In a later interview, Vandersloot claimed to have sold her into slavery and then afterwards recanted his testimony. In
Why
March
would you
2000,
say it?
I know it's fucking
Why would
retarded.
you say it?
The dude, like, I really don't understand this dude. In March 2010, Vandersloot extorted $25,000 from Natalie's mother, demanding that she wire the money to his account in exchange for the location of Natalie's remains. After receiving the money, he revealed the location, but investigators found nothing there. And also, another little side note on that, $25,000 wasn't actually the amount he was looking for. That was the deposit. He wanted 250 grand in total, is what he was actually looking for. I didn't even think you could get away with doing something like that.
Well, we know in Canada, if you listen to our episode on serial killer, um, give me a sec, whatever, just keep going. It'll come to me. But they paid a serial killer, Clifford Olson, like money, thousands of dollars to find the bodies of his victims. And like, as far as I'm concerned, I think the family did get it. They might have withheld some of it, but they like he was like, if you give me this much money, I'll show you where the bodies are at. And he like, I'm pretty sure, if I can remember the episode correctly, he got away with it.
Which is just, oh my god, it's such a
I'll tell
wild
you where her
concept.
body is if you pay me. So fucked.
Yeah, he demanded the money and he gave them locations, but they found nothing. Almost immediately after this, on May 30th, 2010, he was arrested. This is fucking wild. He was arrested in Peru for the murder of a woman named Stephanie Flores, who was
He
found
did it. He
strangled
definitely did
in
it.
in his hotel room. After confessing to the crime, he was sentenced to 28 years in prison, after which he potentially faces extradition to the US for an indictment on the extortion charges. There were many rumors about his dad's involvement, supposedly training to be a judge at the time. Apparently, he paid off two police
Mhm.
officers, he rented a boat and got rid of the body in the ocean.
That
He
must be his
ended
dad in this
his,
picture.
his dad actually ended up as a managing partner for the firm that represented him in court over the false detainments and stuff like that. The story of Vandersloot is wild, involves multiple potential murders, drugs, and human trafficking rings. In January 2023, 18 years were added to Vandersloot's sentence for trafficking cocaine while in prison. On June 8th, 2023, which is not actually that long ago, like 2 months ago, he was extradited to the United States to face trial for extortion and wire fraud linking to Natalie's disappearance. And that's the status as it
That's
stands now.
wild. It's a wild case. I always knew about Natalie Holloway. I've heard about this case numerous times. It's sad. Like that's why it is sad, but I just want to make people aware and clarify this happens all the time in Canada to Indigenous women. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like, and there's like, especially in certain places, there's plastered posters and signs and stuff like that of all these Indigenous women that constantly go missing. The RCMP doesn't do their job to do that, but they can freeze the bank accounts of Canadians that support a peaceful protest. That's why I'm like, I don't like what's going on in my country and all that stuff. But even in the States, how many black children go missing and then nobody cares about it, and it's like disturbing. And then as soon as it's some like beautiful blonde white lady, I get why people get mad, and there's like dark jokes, humor about this. The fact that it is, and that's why I try to do it in my attempt, is because it's sad that she went missing. She probably is either dead or is still in the sex ring being
which
used to.
is probably worse.
Yeah, you get in eventually when me and Aaron do cover Hostel on Class Horrorcast, that shit does happen. Maybe not to, I even think to probably a worse extent of what the torture and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and some of the things that they do, but that stuff is very real. And that movie, why I bring it up, does show how they use like young, good-looking dudes to kind of influence women, especially younger women. And Brett, like 19 is still good. You're still fresh for another how many years in their eyes, not mine. But you understand like that eventually, and then you just either get killed or probably used for something as obscure as like cleaning up after certain stuff. And they or what
Because
they do.
sometimes I feel like they it just sounds so grim, and this is not
Yeah.
my opinion or whatever, but it's just the facts, I think. Is like, like you said, that, they take these girls when they're maybe 18, 19, they've went on their first post high school, pre-college trip or something like that.
Don't know any better.
And yeah, and they're like fresh, like you said. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times after being used for however many years, they give them the out of like, hey, you can help us like recruit more, and like we won't rape you a million times a day and whatever. So you can just be like our
See, I was gonna
slave in
go
a
even
different way.
a darker road. Is they would use their organs
Well,
eventually.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Because as much as people don't want to think about that, I've done enough research to know that that happens more often than anyone would like to admit, and that
It's
they
big
use.
business.
Yeah, it's huge business, and that's why I do believe like eventually we're gonna get into an urban legend episode. We're gonna bring Brett and Billy together. I think it might be even Sawyer from the Pine Size Conspiracy episode. It might be like a big thing of all four of us, and I was trying to do something that we could have banter. It would be incoherent to try to do a structured episode without little stories involving in it. You know what I mean? Just doing a big encompassing case. You have four people on, it gets tough. To like kind of keep and especially with jokes and shit some people are gonna say. So there's one of the urban legends about how kind of like in Romania and places like that. And I had someone tell me this specifically, and that their wife was on a phone with someone who saw this happen. So that's why I'm like, is it you tell me an urban legend? And I was like 19, 20, working in the restaurant industry. And it was we told the story. This is this bug, the guy that can fucking change the pest stuff, and that they will cut you open and take your organs. And he said that his wife was on the phone with her friend in Romania or some country like that. And she saw someone was out playing with a ball, and then she saw the boy get like slit kind of up ear to ear, fucking stomach, intestines, like, and they just took what they could and then just fucking dart off in a van. And that now that I read the urban legend, I'm like, is this stories that people tell to kind of like, because I was young and this guy was like, he heard me talking about the Illuminati and the reptilians, and he's the one that told me that if you were to embody a physical vessel, a reptilian style humanoid body would probably be the best.
I mean, the other side of me is in a way, I can't help but feel like that all those urban legends come from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, they come from real stories. You
Yeah,
know,
so it's like, huh,
yeah,
the
because even
idea.
watching, even prepping to get into our I know what you did last summer series on Class Horrorcast, right? Like watching that, how they joke about it's fucking Freddie Prinze Jr.'s joke about it's all urban legends come from a real story. Da, da, da. And I even said, I was like, is that true though? And me and Chelsea were watching it. I was like, I don't know if that's true. Is it? And but I think that there might hold some truth to that. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. That's freaky. I would like to think, oh, it's all bullshit. None of this happens, but
I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore what is real and what is not, So let's get into the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. It's a very bizarre story. It's very weird. So Bradley was a 23-year-old woman from Virginia who was missing on a Royal Caribbean international cruise with her family on March 1998. Missing on a cruise ship is probably pretty scary. To be
So
honest.
I right, and this sounds really weird because they're supposed to be like terrible and like the most gross things ever. But I have
Mhm.
this like one of my bucket list things is to do a cruise like from I don't know if it's like Miami or somewhere like that, and do that
Yeah.
like is it like the Caribbean or whatever it is?
I know we've talked about it, because even Chelsea's like has heard that there that cruises can be pretty fun, you know.
And I would love to do it once, but then I also hear a lot of stories about how when you basically step foot on a cruise ship, it's like the Wild West. So you've got to be
100%.
prepared for literally anything to go wrong.
So when I was younger and I was a chef, my dad's like, "Oh, you should go like work on a cruise ship, like as a cook. It'd be cool. Like they're always looking, and you get to vacation a bit." And then I talked to a chef, an older one, and he was like, "Don't do that." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, they treat you like shit. You're on that boat for however long, a whole summer, sometimes a couple months, where you're living on this boat." And you're working for them, and they know because you're not going to go back home for a long time, they can treat you like garbage. So like, and that's just that's the cooks, right? So the people that are coming on the boat, you have everyone that's disgruntled, and the stuff, and the staff, and I'm sure they try to act pleasant, but I don't know. Cruise ships seem kind of sketchy to me, and
Yeah,
considering what we're going to talk about, how many people did go missing off of cruise ships or fell off, or anything, that happens so often. It's
that
wild.
always, and that's another thing about I obviously love true crime and like strange and mysterious disappearances probably more than
Mhm.
anything. More, I think I just become fascinated with like the idea of like how these things happen, and it's freaky to me how many people have gone missing or just like disappeared from cruise ships.
And disappeared in general. Cruise ships is a huge thing, and I'm the same way, right? Like that. I try to put myself in their shoes. I've watched a lot of horror movies, I feel like, in my life, so I feel like I think about it in this very detailed, complex manner where I try to put myself in their shoes, and try to think what it'd be like to be walking alone at night on the cruise ship, and or you're drunk. Like you're kind of drunk just walking, and it's like cool, and you hear like the water and stuff like that, and then you could just slip and fall, and then you're gone forever. Nobody's gonna find you. And then you get eaten by sharks or God knows what, or you just like eventually you just like would be a dead body floating in the water, and then sink,
That
and then you're just fish food, and you're gone forever.
the the idea of going overboard on a ship
It's
in general,
frightening.
but then the idea of going overboard off of a cruise ship at
At the dead
night
of night.
in the dark and shit, and
Oh,
knowing
yeah.
that like no amount of screaming or shouting is gonna like do anything. And let's say you didn't die from the fall or whatever,
Mhm.
then maybe still being coherent enough to watch that ship
Yeah,
continue
go.
away while
And
you're
and
just in the
once
water
that
going,
ship is gone,
"Oh, fuck."
it is pitch dark other than the stars above you. It would be the scariest, most frightening feelings in the entire world, next to maybe being sex trafficked or some other horrible things, being in the house of a serial killer. But one of a huge
You
fear I'm
saying that
sure
dude
most
gave
people have.
fucking chills.
I know, because you think of like even that movie, like the Titanic, and how they're with a bunch of people, and they try to display how like cold it is. First of all, because it depends where you are, it could be freezing, and then it's just like once that boat is gone, all your source of light is gone. It's only the stars above that light the what barely you can see in front of you. Frightening. So yeah, I know. On the evening she disappeared, Bradley was at a club on the ship. She had a drink with the members of the house band after their set, and then went off on her own about 1 a.m., so very late. According to one of the band members, Bradley was spotted by her father at 5:30 a.m. It's the next day, and he said she was asleep on the balcony of their cabin. By 6 a.m., Bradley had vanished. An hour later, this chick is gone. Um, at the time of her disappearance, the ship had been heading from Aruba to Kawako. God, I'm gonna pronounce this. Why can I not pronounce anything on this show? And I know how to pronounce this, but here I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna start googling things, so I know. Karako? Does that sound right? I hate butchering this shit. Pronunciation. This is so embarrassing.
I'm as
Um,
bad, like, so I can't really say anything.
okay. Curacao. God, I knew that because there's a fucking liquor called Curacao. God damn it. It looks like something very different. And I remember like this is based out of a liquor, a flavored liquor that's pretty good. They have different flavors. And I used to call it Caraco and it's Curacao. And I remember our brother being like, that's not how you pronounce it. We've been pronouncing it wrong for a long time. Fuck. So the ship docked at the search for Bradley and began because they realized, oh no, another white woman is missing. And the image that they used on some of the FBI stuff is not appealing, in my opinion. They should have used a different image and maybe people would have cared more. I'm fucking kidding. Feel bad. It is sad that she went missing and frightening that she just disappeared off of a fucking cruise
What?
ship.
What did you just say there?
I said that they should have used a better photo of her.
Because I was gonna. Okay, so I'll take the heat for this one now and say what I was gonna say a minute ago, so that everyone will forget what you just said. I was gonna say, well, it's one thing is for sure here. She wasn't sex trafficked anyway.
Yeah. That's what we're all about. We're all about the dark humor, so I hope people like it. You know? This is what you're here for. If you don't know that, I don't know why you're listening at this point, but we want all the fans that truly understand what we're doing to give us 5-star rating reviews and subscribe to the Patreon. So, she went missing, saying so after a pair of tourists, once they like docked, claimed to have seen Bradley in Saracow, saying they recognized her tattoos. Yet Bradley remained missing. In 1999, a Navy claimed to have encountered her in a brothel. So maybe she was a butterface where she's like had that rockin' body. God, I feel so bad. I can't be saying this shit on this episode. This is a missing person, and she's probably not alive, to be honest. It's very sad, but he said that she told her name and asked for help, which is frightening. That sounds like she did get sex trafficked, or at least abducted and put into this brothel. Um, and I'm sure it's devastating to her family and hearing that. And she said she was being held captive there at this brothel.
But so for me, right?
Or could this guy be trying to get attention? This is a Navy man, though. They should be honorable, even though
like
they're not.
I went pretty like deep into her story a couple of years ago, like when I first
Yeah.
came across her name and whatever. And like there's for me anyway, personally, there's a lot of like, and I don't mean this is like oh, maybe we should look at like her family or whatever per se, but
Mhm.
like there's a lot of little inconsistencies, like where her parents said she was terrified of the open sea and she had to be convinced to go on the cruise in the first place,
Yeah.
and she wouldn't walk up to like the rails. Her dad and her brother had to like hold her by the arms so she could like look over because she was so afraid.
Mhm.
And then like that she on the third or fourth night or whenever it is of the cruise, they party till like 4 a.m. and then she comes back to the room and she tells her dad, "Oh, I'm not feeling well from like the motion, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
sleep on the fucking balcony." So all of a
That is
sudden
bizarre.
she's forgotten that she like is afraid or anything. And now I know when you're drunk and stuff, things can change. Like, but to
Yeah.
do a complete 180 and be like, I actually really like the ocean now, and I want to be drunk on the balcony asleep while I don't
Do
feel
you
well.
think that, which is quite possible, especially God knows who's going on these cruise ships to find people and like it would thinking about it could be quite easy in some regard for a someone who is skilled at taking people, like the movie Taken. Because you even look at that movie, it is based on how they can take women, and then he's trying to find his daughter. Phenomenal movie. I do enjoy it. And him going after the people. But even you see how they even set that up. But I'm sure, if you paid to go on, the couple guys paid to go on the cruise, and then you kind of like watch certain people, and then you observe them, see what they're doing, what they act like. They learn cues of their emotional state, because you can do that by looking at many things that people physically do to show their mental state, and then you drug them, right? You slip a drug in their drink, they think they're drunk, and then she passes out, and they follow her and just watch her from a distance. She passes out in public, and then to everybody else, she's just hanging on to a guy she knows or is married to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's so many weird things about this. Like then, I think the dad
All
was the
these
first
cases
one
are fucking weird, dude.
that like discovered that she wasn't on the balcony anymore or whatever. But then, they said stuff about like between 5:30 and 6 a.m. They know that she changed her clothes completely and that
Mhm.
she took her cigarettes
Yeah, it's weird.
and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so now you're saying she came back in from the balcony and got changed out of whatever she was in and took her cigarettes and stuff and left the
Yeah.
room. And then like they had, they docked and stuff, and apparently they went to the captain or whatever and said like, our daughter's missing. You need to get on the loudspeakers or whatever and put a call out. And they were like, no, it's too early. We can't use the speakers. It's too early. And like they had docked, and the family were like, okay, can we either back away from the dock right now or just make sure that nobody leaves the ship till we find out what's going on? And they were like, no, no, it's all good. And they just let people disembark.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
and I'm not saying that the cruise lines are involved, but like part of me has to wonder, like, is there a bigger, like you mentioned, Taken, and that kind of gives you a slight. I know it's obviously a Hollywood movie, but a slight glimpse into potentially how big those circles go.
Okay, get this, okay, right? Right. Think about this. Conspiracy corner. All right. You get like Jeffrey Epstein money. You're a philanthropist, and you just make tons of money doing very shady things that are all connected to very powerful people. You buy a nice big boat, say like a cruise ship. You name it something fancy, and then you just make people disappear. Not as often where people would ask questions, but enough where you can make a good income from it. You know, I'm sure
Yeah,
this is gonna scare people out of going on vacation or on cruise ships, and I hope it does, because this shit is fucking bizarre. How often that it happens, especially on cruise ships or on vacations in places you don't know in general. Like
yeah,
Madeline McCain, right? That's her name, McCain,
McCann.
uh, McCann. Like you said, that is just the surface. They focus on one small case. I said this at work because we were getting into this episode, and they focus on these little one case of this one person going missing. Yet it happens by the thousands.
Well, in one sense, like, because a lot of people say, yeah, but if there really was these rings or these like
85,000
groups
children went missing at the border.
that like
They know that.
groups do this or whatever, why would they let it become so international and widespread? And I was like, think about this for a second, right? If you're trafficking hundreds of thousands of people and children, right?
Mhm.
And one case gets so much press, like to the point where it just floods everything, and like it still does to this day.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a really good distraction. Yes, it might be about the things you're doing, but they haven't a fucking clue. So you
No,
can
and
just
yeah.
continue on.
I have to look this up if this is factual, but I don't know what is factual anymore, because every internet service is probably lying to you and giving you articles that are based on fabrications. But I heard that the person that created the Amber Alert was connected to the Clintons, and it's actually a big distraction tool, because if the Amber Alert worked, and you were actually if they were actually tracking the amount of children that went missing even around your area or in certain places, it would be like every hour. That's how often children go missing. So it
Which
would
is
be
like,
like once a week, you know what I mean? If you were in your area, It's in your province, in your state, in your country. It would be like more often than you could even imagine, which is it should frighten people. And like I've said before, The Sound of Freedom. I've yet to watch it. I actually really want to. I've heard good things, but there's one point that I need to make: is it leading to any arrests? No. It's making people aware that this stuff happens. We already know, if you understand this fucking planet that we live on, or whatever the fuck it is, that this happens too often. It shouldn't happen as often as it does. It happens more often than you could even imagine. And that putting a movie out there is not it's not
Yeah,
leading to anybody's arrest.
that's what,
Where the
like,
fuck's the black book?
that was the thing I found was, like, when everybody was talking about all this shit about, like, the air conditioning, like, going in all the theaters and, "Oh my
Yeah,
god, I can't see Sound of Freedom, the conspiracy." And I think people were more interested in, like, the TikTok conspiracy about, like, why I can't watch this movie
yeah,
than, "Hold on a second, like, they didn't invent the wheel here." Like,
no,
did anybody go to see that movie and go, "Trafficking is real? What? Huh?
I know.
Is that I
Exactly.
never heard of this."
That dude, the dude that is the main character of that movie, um,
Um,
I can't remember his name,
let me see.
but yeah, if you want to look it up quickly, I just want to mention that he's a little bit of a sketchy character that seems to be telling these outlandish tales. And the weirdest thing is, quite strange, is that he was doing one interview and he was wearing a Masonic tie. So I saw people like in the know, people that try to be very aware of all sides of stuff. We're calling it the sound of Freemasonry.
There is something, weird about him, though.
Yeah.
There
I really think that this is being used as another distraction away from, oh, everyone's aware of it. Yeah, okay, we're all aware of it, and but nothing's being done about it. People should be standing up in like the millions to be like, enough of this. Why is this happening? But we don't, and there's no explanation for Ghislaine Maxwell. She got arrested for trafficking to no one because of the episode. I just want to bring this stuff up because it's I want people to realize that, like, yeah, we're aware of it now. Okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, because it can't just be that, like, it can't be just
People
a
should be more
flash in the
angry than
pan.
they are. Yeah. Just like the when we talked about David Grush and all that shit, is that his name? And the UFO shit. It's just like they and I said this, that's probably a distraction. He gives you no fucking evidence. It's just a statement from a guy that is an insider and works for the government. So we're just supposed to believe his fairy tales of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While providing no evidence. So it's quite bizarre. I miss like it pisses me off because it's happening at such a large scale, and I believe it's being used for stuff like adrenochrome. People don't believe in that shit. Fine, I don't give a shit. It's dangerous what is happening, and it's been happening for a very long time. And now people are like aware of it. Okay, the first step is awareness. I understand that, but now what? We're gonna actually, protest in the millions and demand who Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking to? Oh, we can't because they're controlling the world that you live in. Dum dums. So on the episode of Dr. Phil, Bradley's parents said that there had been sent a photo of a woman that could have been Bradley via anonymous sender. In the photo, the woman is scantily dressed, which adds fuel to the theory that Bradley was kidnapped and sold into sex slavery. Um, and then we'll get to the next case quickly. I just want to see if I can find that image. I don't know if they would show it. I did look for image. Oh, I found it.
Which
Um,
image is that?
she's scantily dressed. I'm trying to pull it up. It looks kind of
Oh,
like shit.
yes, the image of her on the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
freaky.
trying. This computer doesn't let me save. There we go. It's looks like her, but she kind of looks like she's having a good time. It's fucking. I don't know. This is fucking scary. Here, let me find it. There it is. I just want to pull up this for everybody on the video side of things. Okay. Let's look at this. Okay. Look at what they did to her in the progression of what it's a missing person photo, and then they excel it to what age she could be at now, and they gave her no no chin, no nothing. They gave her like her head is the size of her neck, and it looks kind of scary. She looks like a worm a bit. They didn't do a good job. Do you see what I'm seeing? Is that bad to say?
In the middle one, she looks like those worm dudes out of Men in Black.
I know. That's what I'm saying. They didn't do a good job because she's not like they made her head look the same size
Is
of her
that part
neck.
of the conspiracy, Tom?
Might be. And this is the picture.
Hmm. Scary.
Bizarre. Yeah, it is. It
It
looks
does
just
look,
like her.
yeah, it does look a
And the
lot
teeth,
like her.
even. That's kind of frightening. And I don't know. You can kind of see in her eyes that,
She's a little bit of a wonky eye, and it looks like
yeah,
she has that same wonky eye.
yeah. But even her, you can tell that she's like, it seems like if you read like mannerisms, body language, it looks like she's kind of like, it looks like she's uncomfortable, but being like, it looks like she doesn't like what's going on. I think that might be her, and that is fucking frightening. That and it doesn't matter. I'm sure like there's people that prefer kids and shit like that. Fucked up. Okay, but I'm sure there's people that prefer like other shit too. It's a big business, the sex trade, you know, and I'm sure that sometimes it doesn't matter really what you look like because you're just a body to be used.
Here's a question, right? Other than like obviously I know kids is a different thing in itself.
A lot more
Do
expensive. You look up
do
hot dogs and what they're worth.
do dudes ever get abducted?
I don't know. I'm sure they do. I'm sure little boys do, which is fucked up. But
Yeah,
I'm
but
I'm
I'm talking about like, when we go into like the 17, 18, 19-year-old guys.
I'm sure they look like a
That's
fucking
something I'd like to look up at some point and see like
yeah,
is that actually a thing?
yeah,
Because I feel like there's like the world is so fucked that like I don't know if you could find something. We could probably sit here and try and think of the most bizarre random thing,
yeah, yeah. And
and
it
then
would
like
it could be
you would
weird.
Google it or whatever, and like you would find it. There's like a whole community that like adore.
I'm sure that younger men have gone missing. I feel like it's slightly harder. It sounds bad, but there's a big difference between men and women if people haven't paid attention to it.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know I
What?
don't know if
What?
that's a thing. I
This
don't
is a
think I
new
think
thing, is it?
it's very new. People for centuries have been believing that they can just identify as a fucking banana, and then they were like they turn like into some soft mush thing that you peel away and you eat like a fucking monkey. That's a weird analogy, but that you would think that like you would be more I don't know men, even younger men. Um, I feel like it'd be a little harder to try to kidnap them because there is physical strength. Even if you're a fat dude, nobody wants you. But if you're a good looking, this sounds bad, but if you're a good looking, like strong, like or even skinnier, younger dude, I don't know. I feel like men are more inclined to punch you in the face. You know what I mean? They're more like
Hmm.
they will get aggressive. We have testosterone, so it will like you'll end up getting like aggressive and angry, and then your fucking nose is bloody. And try to
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
up this
yeah.
kid. As a younger kid, when they're a weak, you know what I mean? You get someone like The Rock, which I think he's involved with some shady shit I've heard. A big strong guy. He'll be able to take him on. But I feel like it's definitely I think that exists for sure. Younger men, because like people have preferences, right? And you're selling people, right? So like it could, if you want a little bit of this or a little bit of that, I'm sure they have all sorts of things. They probably have like the fat room, you know. Henry Kissinger goes in there. And he, stupid. All right, next
It's
story because this is like so
freaky.
deep.
Let's see. You know what? I'm gonna skip over one and come back to it.
Okay,
And we're gonna kind of keep with the theme to a degree. So obviously, the first case I covered was set in Aruba, and it looks like we're going. I didn't realize how freaky Aruba is turning out to be. This is a
I'll
story
go to
of
Aruba.
Robin Gardner. Gard Gardner.
Yeah, it's Gardner. Gardner.
Um, on the 2nd of August 2011,
I
35
could
year old.
understand why she might be trafficked.
Now,
She's a good looking woman.
she
Just
is. You know what, right? I don't want to say similar to Natalie Holloway, but like again, it's like the blonde hair, like the slim,
Yeah, yeah.
that slim kind of whatever.
There's
Um,
Robin. There's Natalie. Natalie, and then Robin.
they're mother and daughter.
Yeah.
Um,
Conspiracy.
35-year-old Robin Gardner had been staying with her boyfriend Richard Forrester at his house in Maryland, United States. She had a nice life. She loved to travel, loved her two cats, Kobe and Toonsy, and enjoyed shows like The Real Housewives of New York. Richard and Robin had decided they would like to live together and had just started looking for a new home. On the 31st of July, Robin told Richard she was going to Florida to see her parents. They lived in Florida, so it was a trip she frequently made. Before she left Maryland, Robin and Richard had an argument. Robin went to Florida, but she didn't intend on staying there. From there, she flew to Aruba, and she wasn't alone. She went with a 50-year-old businessman called Gary Giordano.
Must be
I
this
think
guy.
I think that's how you pronounce it. Apparently, he paid for the trip. Robin had known Gary for over a year. They had met online. He asked her to go on several different trips with him, but she said no every single time. However, the Aruba trip was different. She decided to say yes. She had recently lost her job as a patient coordinator in a dental office and wanted to clear her head. Robin's friend, Christina Jones, wasn't happy about the trip. Christina saw text messages Gary sent Robin when she turned down the trip on a cruise previously. On that occasion, she went to New York instead with Richard, and Christina said Gary flipped when he found out. Even after Robin was aware of this side of Gary, she trusted him and she thought that the breakaway would do her good. They arrived in Aruba on the 31st of July and checked into the Marriott Hotel. Guests at the hotel and on the island saw them at different locations. They went to the beach, different bars, restaurants, and a casino. 2 days after they arrived on the 2nd of August, Gary and Robin went to the Rum Reef Bar and Grill in the Baby Beach area of the island. At the bar, Robin and Gary
It's
ordered
on the baby
food.
beach. There's just a bunch of like diapers and like
Yeah,
baby
I don't
straw
know why
and
you would
around.
call it that. I don't know. It's a bit strange of a name. Um, at the bar and grill, they ordered food, but Robin ate only a small bit of a salad. The waitress at the restaurant described Robin as being woozy and potentially appearing severely intoxicated. She was wearing a dress and had her hair and makeup done. They
She
left
looks
the
like a
restaurant.
party girl.
Yeah, yeah, big time. They left the restaurant after 4 p.m. A photo was taken just before they left, and the timestamp was 4:12 p.m. Just 2 hours later, a little after 6 p.m., Gary returned to the same restaurant. He tapped on the shutters and then went around the back of the restaurant where the kitchen was and he asked them to call for help. He appeared calm and said that he needed police, that Robin was not with him. Police arrived at the restaurant and spoke to Gary. They noticed he was sweating profusely at the time. There was a scratch on his neck. He told the police that he went out snorkeling with Robin and then he noticed the currents were getting strong. He tapped her on the leg, indicating they should swim back to shore. But before he reached the shore, he lost sight of Robin and then he said he ran to the restaurant to get help. So straight away, that's like all red flags for me. I'm like, sounds a bit suspicious.
Yeah, it is like all these cases are like disturbing and wild because they're cases that are focused on, and I'm sure this happens way more often than these famous cases of people that obviously had people that cared about him. But like looking at the images and like just like this one, she's like staring at the camera in this sort of relaxed, very like happy pose. It is like creepy and like disturbing to think that she is either no longer alive, she's probably dead somewhere, um, buried in the ground, or what's more likely, is she's been used for her body for years and destroyed, where you mentally break down and eventually have like some sort of Stockholm syndrome, and you'd have to accept your fate. And the more it persists for even years, the more your mind would just try to rationalize it the best it could and try to live. Like it's wild what your mind will do, but this is why these things, and especially when we get the missing 411 and all that stuff, cases of disappearances have always like creeped me out. If somebody finds a dead body, you know that they're dead. You can kind of come to you can come to some sort of closure with that. But somebody that is like just disappeared off of the face of the earth, off the internet, off of, especially nowadays, is freaky.
Yeah, it's like, and again, like this is another one where, like apparently the police took him out on a helicopter to look for. Um, he pointed out the area where he last saw her. A huge search took place. More than 60 officials, FBI agents, Aruba riot cops, volunteers searched the area along the coastline. They found nothing. No trace of her was ever found. As police questioned
So
Gary
crazy.
further and examined the details in the area, they found some inconsistencies in the account he provided in that 2 hour window. According to Gary, the explanation was a simple one. They decided to go snorkeling and she drowned. He said that she had taken sleeping pills earlier that day, had 2 glasses of vodka at the hotel before they went to the bar. But there were a few things that didn't make sense to anybody. Gary did not get back into the water. He didn't try and find or help Robin, even though he was a licensed scuba diver. He went to the restaurant to call for help instead. When he got to the restaurant, he had no top on, was wearing sneakers and his toupee. He did not appear to be in any urgency to get
Mm.
help when he reached the restaurant. Nobody saw Robin or Gary snorkeling that day. In fact, a man on the beach said they did not go into the water at all that afternoon. A man who was fishing that day said that he saw them walk along the reef at 4:22 p.m., around 10 minutes after they left the restaurant, but he said they did not get into the water and they drove off and he never saw them return. The police obtained surveillance footage from the area. They said they found it difficult to identify Gary in the footage that they had access to, as he had different hair pieces on at different times. Surveillance
Fucking
video
weird.
showed Gary in his rental car parked at the back of the bar and restaurant. The Toyota RAV4 had tinted windows, so no one else in the vehicle could be identified. He parked the car at the back of the parking lot twice. Blood was found on a rock behind the dive shop, at the Rum Reef Bar and
Oh, we know
Grill.
who did this.
The dive shop was around 100 yards from where Gary said they had went snorkeling. The car was cleaned when he returned it to the Star Rental at the airport. Police were unable to obtain any evidence from it, but the rental agent said they didn't notice anything unusual. As police investigated further, a sinister picture began to emerge and a possible motive for murder. It was reported that the police obtained surveillance footage of a fight between both of them. According to reports, the video showed them engaged in a violent fight that resulted in Gary putting his hands around her throat and forcing her into the elevator at the hotel before she went missing. Prior to the trip, a couple of restraining orders had been obtained against Gary from previous relationships in the US. Police also discovered that an American Express travel policy for the sum of 1.5 million had been taken out on Robin, which Gary was named as the sole beneficiary. But the alarming part about that was just 2 days after she went missing, he had sought on several occasions to redeem it. He called 4 times in a row to try and redeem it, and the agent notified police and told them that he seemed excited, like he was about to win a prize. A couple of days after she disappeared, he tried to leave Aruba and return back to the United States, but he was stopped and detained by local police. They found explicit photos on his phone of Robin. He spent 4 months in prison in Aruba. He was arrested for suspicion of murder, manslaughter, kidnapping, and fraud. However, he was not charged. A judge ordered his release due to insufficient evidence. When he was released, he returned to the US. Police today believe that Robin is dead, but to date, no trace of her has ever been found, and nobody has been charged with the crime.
That's wild. Um,
When it's clearly like, I mean, I'm sorry, but it was
he definitely did it.
definitely him.
Definitely. Um, Part of me wonders if, like, I don't know. I'm sure this happens. But if there's people maybe like him, that get paid from traffickers. You live in Florida or whatever, and then you influence women to take trips with you, and then he kind of like gives them over to these traffickers in certain places which he's visited. I've when I went to Cuba, when I was 19, a lot of sketchy characters were working on resorts, a lot of fucking weird people, and shady dudes trying to sell you like fucking weird ass cigars, and you know like
I
I knew
always
it.
wonder about that, like what's the intention here? Because I used to think of it like oh, this is just like dudes trying to peddle some bullshit to make some money. But
Yeah.
now I feel like that there's a deeper level. It's like, okay, what is this shit you're giving me? What's the intention here? Is it
Well,
for me to be like all
yeah.
drugged up so you can like fucking rob me or something, or like kidnap my fucking girlfriend or some shit?
I'll tell you stories on the Patreon sometime in a rant episode if you remind me about Cuba. But one story I can tell is that we knew these Canadian dudes from like Montreal or something like that, and we talked to them a couple times, like older dudes but funny and shit like that, and in their 40s, and we're like in our 20s, and they went off the resort to get weed. They were promised 10 grams of weed for $100, which is like it's a gram for gram, but over there, obviously, that's I'm sure what they would have charged. Um, and then so they go down to Havana and meet up with some guy. And then they say, don't open till you get back to your resort. Like, you don't open it till you get back to your hotel. Don't look at it or whatever. And he's like, it's in the bag. And then so they got back to the hotel and like they told us the whole story. And they're like, we fucking opened the bag and it was a towel wrapped in like grocery bags. And I'm like, I'm sure this happens all the time. I bought some cigars on the beach, didn't know any better, and I couldn't take them on the plane because they were like opened already and shit. So
Yeah.
people are fucking sketchy. I'm gonna go through this one quick just because I find this one kind of interesting. This is uh Sister Alina Christie. I just want to make sure I don't like I'm gonna try to not mispronounce words. Um uh Aline. I oh, it's Eileen. Just I don't know. When things are spelled with e's and shit, it's just like I don't know. It doesn't seem like um it should pronounce. I don't know. We suck at pronouncing stuff on this show. Everyone should be used to it by now. I think this is Eileen. Eileen. Eileen.
Eileen, right?
Eileen. Yeah. I don't know how the fuck I just think it's funny. I wish I don't know. I think that people on the audio will hear me listen to that thing where it's like, how do you pronounce this? Eileen. So Sister Eileen Christie, 72, was a Roman Catholic nun and teacher of theology. That's interesting. Who left New York in 2016 for a European vacation. Along her way, she kept in contact with a nephew from home via email. Last time her nephew heard from Sister Christie, that's a fun name, Sister Christie. She informed him that she had checked into a hotel at Hallstatt, Austria, a village near the Alps. After being reported missing, authorities searched the hostel. Most of her belongings, including her passport, her cell phone, and her wallet, were all left behind. Her phone camera revealed images and videos suggesting she was having a wonderful time. I have pictures of this. Not oh, this is it's the only picture I could find of her. Um, I don't think she was trafficked for sex, unless somebody wanted somebody to fold your laundry and put your clothes away and is that rude? Is that rude? Because
No, I was just gonna like, Jesus Christ, if she got trafficked for that reason, then Christ, I don't want to even see who's at the other end of that.
a number of strange circumstances surrounding the nun's disappearance that failed to add up. One of the only missing items from her room was her swimsuit. And this is why I want to bring this up, suggesting she may have drowned while taking a swim. Yet Sister Christie frequently swam during her travels. She was a great swimmer, which she, frequently took to this area, Austria, over many years. Her familiarity and experience with the village makes her more likely she was taken, yet no major suspects have arrived or arisen. But I just want to bring it up because part of me thinks, who knows what could happen, while you're swimming. Her swimsuit was the only thing missing, which means she was wearing it, which means like, but who's trafficking some 72-year-old nun? Like, what would be the purpose in overpowering her and all the effort it would take to kidnap her? I feel like she drowned. And that's even a creepy thing of like everyone thinks they're trafficked and like something really bad happened to them. And then it's just like they just drowned. Something like a big wave went over and
Which is equally as shit and scary in a way.
Yeah, it is. But I heard drowning's peaceful. Would you rather burn to death in a building, say in Maui, from a direct energy weapon? I know some people don't think that's the case, but very strange circumstances considering trees were not burnt down. But this will be weeks out after. Hopefully, they're rebuilding the smart city after this, so be prepared. But would you rather burn in a fire like Freddy Krueger in some boiler room or drowned?
I mean, I guess drowned, but
I sure you just like lose oxygen slowly, and then I've also heard it's
do we?
terrifying.
Do we
Some
though?
people say it's peaceful, some people say it's terrifying. But how would we know unless you actually died drowning? You know? But the people that actually passed out, maybe got saved, they could tell you. We should get someone. Has anyone drowned? Email me at strangerepodcast@gmail.com. Oh, also, I have to. We have to do an episode about how I got an email from a guy that knew Wild Bill quite well, and that Wild Bill blamed him for stuff. Which we'll do a Patreon episode or even just a rant episode for the main show, so I can explain this. But as we said on later episodes, we thought that he was probably stringing us along and telling us bullshit. Oh, he was. He definitely was.
Of course.
I
Good old
fit.
Wild Bill.
I know. I
Brother
figured
Bill.
that. Yeah, I had to delete him from everything and block him so he wouldn't try to contact
Yeah,
me or
he
any
found
of
my
the people I
personal
know.
Instagram and stuff
Yeah,
somehow. I'm not sure how he found that, but
yeah, scary stuff. So we'll talk about that on a episode for either the main show or Patreon. Um, I got I think 2 or 3 more small ones. Um, do you want me to take on one more?
whatever you want. I have two more, so
Okay,
entirely up to
so
you.
let's get into this one. It's not too long. This is an interesting one. Poor John Hallford, a well-liked guy of 63. He owned and operated a popular book and gift shop in England. In March of 2011, just before he and his wife were celebrating their 25 years of marriage, he went along on a cruise to Egypt. That actually sounds pretty fun. Eager to fulfill his lifelong dream before arthritis made it impossible. I I already have carpal tunnel, man. I don't want arthritis. My grandma had bad arthritis. What does that mean? That you have, like, you just like live like this, like you can't move your arms and legs or anything?
Yeah, like your fingers and stuff. Like one of my grandparents, and like her fingers are like all
Yeah,
like
my grandma's
fucked up and
fingers
shit.
took look like that too before she died.
Well, I think I have. So I broke this thumb doing jiu-jitsu,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure I either fractured or broke the other thumb, and I have um carpal tunnel in both of them. So
yeah.
that's
I have
cool. I
bad
can't
carpal
wait to
tunnel.
have fucking hook hands in a couple
I
of
know, me
years.
too. We'll do it together while trying to podcast. We'll have AI technology by then that can like control the whole show by voice commands. Yeah, he's going like before arthritis, I guess, took over his hands, and off he went. He had an amazing time, all while texting back home about his adventures and taking photos and videos of the sites. On one night before the ship docked, Harold sent his Hallford sent his wife a text regarding his flight information. Planning to meet him at the airport, John Hallford was practically on her way. Oh, Hallford's wife was planning. She's on her way the next day when she got a call from her husband that he had vanished from the cruise ship. Another person that just vanished out of nowhere from a cruise ship. Um, she suspects that John fell from the ship, and a theory supported by the fact that he was seen drinking cocktails near midnight. So he's already been drinking all night, and you're having more cocktails. If intoxicated too close to the ledge, he might have just had a bit of bad luck. And if that is the case, if that happens more often than what we think it does, that's wild. That you can just be drunk and just be like looking at the side of the thing and then you just fall off. Like that's kind of frightening. We're not going ever on a cruise ship because I don't want to fall off. Okay, a little.
Now, the other side of that is if you dig a little bit more into his story,
Yeah,
uh, so some people may wonder why, if he's a married man at that
yeah,
age, why he's taking a trip to Egypt on his own. So
Yeah,
apparently,
because he's on his own, right? Which is
yeah.
that's
So
bizarre.
apparently, he decided to take the trip alone. He spent £6,000 taking the trip after their marriage came into severe difficulties, whatever that means.
Did he commit suicide? Did he unalive himself?
And then, and it's
He's an
weird, right?
old dude.
Because yeah, because they said that like
I'm gonna bring up an image.
he drank cocktails and shit, but then his wife was like, I only ever knew John to drink beer and stuff like that for the entire time I've ever known him, which
And
was like
somebody saw
40
him.
years at that point.
So if that is true, or if they're just mistaking him for another old man, could be possible because he looks like your average white old man. Not gonna lie, with
Or maybe,
suspenders.
who knows, maybe he was like, you know what, let me try some cocktails before I throw myself off this ship.
Yeah, try something delicious, because like even as I get older, like beer is not my thing anymore. I still love drinking beer, but it's I'd rather something a little more tasty that also can get me kind of a little buzzed. But I think there's probably there is a more evidence I feel like to say that he probably their marriage got rocky. Maybe they're fighting all the time. She was threatening of leaving him. He's an older dude. Um, he's 63. He looks like he's 75. And then he's just like, fuck it. And then like goes on his dream vacation and then commits suicide there or whatever, right? I'll show
Yeah,
that bitch, like
yeah, like it's weird because like his wife was quoted as saying, Ruth Halford described her husband John like the following. He was happy, certainly not depressed, enjoying his cruise and meeting people, but definitely looking forward to getting home again to be with me and the children. Although we had some difficulties, it wasn't anything that was super notable. The last known facts about Mr. Halford indicate that he was last seen on board the cruise ship at 11:45 p.m. the night before he disappeared, drinking cocktails in the bar when the ship was approaching its final port. But when the ship reached the port and the passengers were disembarking at 7 a.m., there was no trace of him.
I don't know. It's bizarre. Maybe he just had enough, Maybe he's like, I fucking hate these kids. They're ungrateful brats. My wife won't suck my wiener anymore. I'm done. I go to Egypt and I'm gonna drink cocktails and I'm gonna
Now,
suck a guy's dick and then I'm gonna jump off the fucking cruise
straight
ship.
away to me, that's fucking spooky.
It is bizarre.
Egypt. I
Yeah,
would love to go to
me too.
Egypt. That's on the bucket list for me, but too spooky.
Yeah, let's
Too
go
many
and we'll
spooky
go to
guys.
the same chamber that Aleister Crowley went and we'll invoke the demon.
If I go, I'm dressing like fucking Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell.
Okay, I'll be that other guy that has the messed up eye. I'll be like, "You're on the wrong side." Or I
Oh
got
yeah,
all the horses.
fucking
Benny.
Benny, yeah,
Yeah, I'll dress up like him.
with that
I'll
little
tan
fucking what's that called, a
the fez,
fez.
little fez on top of his head. Crazy.
I want to get one of them.
It is bizarre, and his case is just like I don't know. A lot of I think that he committed suicide. There's a
Probably.
cool. I think that's nobody's taken him unless somehow he like some happened. Who knows, right? He's out and he's doing something. He has a heart attack. Maybe they can't identify him. Anything like that, right? All right, bring it in there, bro.
Um, I guess I was going to structure it differently and do this one right at the end, but I think it kind of ties in with this because it happened like I think within like 2 or 3 weeks of actually, and I didn't know you were doing this, guy, but
Hmm.
this case also happened at the same time,
As
which
John
is
Halford.
yeah, around the same
Weird.
time. The case of Rebecca. I don't know how do you pronounce her surname. Coriam, Coriam,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh,
Coriam,
Coram.
Corey,
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh,
Anyway,
nice. I had that written down. So, yeah, I have two more left. Sick. Three if you count my little small Asian one. Not that's
um,
not indicating that an Asian penis or anything like that.
Um, on
Sorry.
March 22nd, 2011, while working aboard the Disney Wonder cruise ship off the coast of Mexico, 24-year-old Rebecca suddenly disappeared. To this day, her case remains unsolved, and it's far
That's
from the
bizarre.
only one. Since the 1980s, the cruise industry has enjoyed steady growth in popularity and revenue. Massive floating self sufficient cities headed towards exotic destinations have been a huge draw for vacationers for several decades now, with no signs of the draw waning. However, such a world of leisure and luxury is not without its shady underbelly. Since 2000, there have been 313 documented cases of people going missing from cruise ships, with only about
In the past, would
10%.
you say past year?
No, since 2000. That's
Okay.
only properly now fully fleshed out, like documented cases.
Yeah,
There's much
because you
more than that.
don't know. Yeah.
And of those ones, less than 10% have been resolved in any way. And because cruise lines are not legally required to make public every case of a person who goes missing or goes overboard, it is estimated by most of the industry that only around 15% of such cases are actually documented and become public via the media in any way,
15%.
which is
That's like
wild.
thousands of people.
Yeah, basically.
That's scary. I'm
The
not going
case
on a
of
cruise ship
Rebecca,
ever.
yeah, I know, right? Because I really want to, but then at the same time, it's just
No,
horrifying
it
to
looks
me.
nice, but
And
no,
like, if
even
shit starts to
yeah,
happen to you, like, because I even think, right, even as a dude, and I don't even mean about like getting sex trafficked or anything, but like, let's say you're on a cruise ship and there's like, I don't know, a group of like fucking weird, like creepy, aggressive. Um, let's say
you're
both of you guys decide, oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a cruise for our honeymoon, and you're
yeah,
having a good time, and there's all like, you get this group of like creepy fucking like, I don't know,
Russians.
Dominican dudes or fucking weird dudes, whatever, and they're like coming on to your new wife, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, haha, we're all good. Fuck off. Like, there's nothing stopping you from getting fucked up there and then her being taken, and like, because
No,
it's
and
just like
that's
the
why
Wild
I was saying
West.
when I was in Cuba, it was creepy, these Russian dudes. I ended up grabbing my buddy's balls. And then
Weird,
like
man.
squeezing him. They what they said to him. So we kept seeing these Russian guys. There's three of them, and I think they were definitely like gay and into some weird shit. And they kept like they'd be like, "You crazy Canadians," and I wear a bandana and shit because I'm a fucking wannabe thug. And then so they would like rub the top of my fucking head and shit, and like as they walk by, and they would just do creepy shit because we were like all looked fairly young, right? We're like 19, 20. And then when my buddy is like this, the funniest dude ever. He's like, I'll post some pictures from Cuba. I was gonna do it to the Strange Brew account, show like a younger version of me throughout the years. And they my buddy Mike was like this tall, like gangly kind of fucking ginger dude. And they came up behind him and they were like, "You're not that good looking, but you have beautiful balls." Because he's been wearing gym shorts the whole time, the whole fucking vacation. Very funny though. He would one day be wearing red gym shorts with a red shirt and a red hat, like a baseball cap. Then the next day it would be a yellow gym shorts, yellow shirt, and yeah, I don't know how he coordinated all these outfits, but every day he would be in these pure blue, green outfits. I don't know where he got all this from, but every day it'd be a different color. And then so he's always wearing basketball shorts. So they must have somehow noticed his balls somehow. And then the guy like came up to him and said that into his ear. We were all drunk on the last night. And this is I tell this on my shout out people episode. And everyone's like, your buddy's down. I turn around, Mike's on the ground grabbing his balls. And he's like, the fucking Russian. He's trying to point. Everyone's drunk. And then me and my cousin were getting mad and it just this whole thing happened. I threw a fucking drink on a guy that was trying to help me. He's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Fuck you!" I threw my fucking strawberry daiquiri at him.
But you see
Strawberry.
what I mean though, about how
It was
quickly I feel
scary.
like that shit like turns weird. Like Hostel, for example. Like, there's a
Scary.
case of dudes basically getting abducted for like different reasons, but it
Yeah.
just goes to show how quickly, like, maybe as a guy you might think, I'll be fine. I'm a
And
dude or
then your
whatever. But it's
organs,
like,
they want your healthy heart,
yeah, but
or
like, let's say
yeah,
you're just there with your girl, like, and shit gets weird, and you step up and go, "No, not happening." But
yeah,
you've got a group of guys now, and you're on this cruise ship, and you don't really know what's going on, and everyone's speaking in fucking different language, and you're like, "Who the
yeah.
fuck is like, who's in on this? Who's fucking? How do I get off this shit?"
Yeah, frightening. I hope this scares a lot of people.
Like it is
Carry
freaky.
on.
Okay, so the case of Rebecca was one of the few cases that did go public. Nevertheless, the truth about what happened to her aboard the Disney Wonder
Yeah, a
remains
Disney
unknown.
cruise.
I know, which is even more wild, I think. I know like Disney are into some shady shit, but you would
Creepy.
think like that, you
Because
know,
there's kids on board of those ships. How often does that happen?
um let's see. At the time of her disappearance, she was a 24-year-old Chester, England native who worked with children aboard the Disney cruise ship. So there's another thing. She's
Oh,
a fucking
weird.
employee.
You know, Ghislaine Maxwell was in Disney World in the '80s, making like speeches and shit.
That doesn't surprise me. That
Yeah,
does
look it
not
up.
surprise me. Um, so they were en route to Mexico from Los Angeles. She was last seen on CCTV footage at 5:45 a.m. in the crew lounge talking on an internal phone line, wearing men's clothing and acting visibly distressed.
Weird. Is that this photo? That's bizarre.
Yeah. Um, After hanging up the phone, she was neither seen nor heard from ever again. When she failed to report to her 9 a.m. shift, Disney staff were alerted to search the ship for her, but to no avail. The United States Coast Guard and Mexican Navy were then contacted to perform a search of the surrounding ocean, but also came up short to any clues. According to Rebecca's dad, Disney disregarded standard operating procedures and didn't turn the ship around to look for his daughter. Additionally, he states that the Navy and Coast Guard teams were given incorrect coordinates and likely searched the wrong area of the sea. Under the flags of convenience system, jurisdiction of the case fell on the country of the ship's registration, which in this case was the tax haven of the Bahamas.
Hmm.
3 days after her disappearance, Disney contacted the Royal Bahama Police Force to conduct an investigation. They responded by assigning one detective to the case, and he was flown out by Disney via private jet to Los Angeles. He spent 1 day aboard the Wonder once it returned to port, interviewing six of 950 employees and zero of the 2,000 plus passengers. After several days of stalled communications, Disney flew out Rebecca's parents to meet with the detective and the ship's captain in Los Angeles. In the matter of their missing daughter, the family was treated Disney style. According to her mother, everything was staged by Disney. We were taken in a car with blacked out windows. On the boat, we were taken onto the boat's back entrance as passengers disembarked from the front. They took us to a room where they played CCTV footage of Rebecca, where she appears to be fine. On board, the ship's captain offered the family his conclusion as to the fate of their daughter. He explained that it was likely that she had been swept off of Deck 5 by a rogue wave. Mike and Anne were then shown Deck 5, a crew swimming pool area directly in front of the ship's bridge that was guarded by walls reaching over 6.5 feet tall. They were then taken to the crew quarters and Rebecca's cabin, where they were shown a sandal that allegedly belonged to her and was recovered on Deck 5. Yeah, I don't know.
That does not add up. That is like creepy. That's
It,
fucking bizarre.
it does sound really Disney, though. It gets worse. Oh,
Um,
hold on. It gets way
I
worse.
think that I just want to say that like okay, there's connections to Epstein and Disney and what the Disney like castle looks like on the cover, looks like Epstein's island. Same with
Hmm.
Ellen DeGeneres' set. All these things that are like weird coincidences. And if you think about it, if they wanted to just like make this underground sex ring using Disney, because we know Disney is shady, Walt Disney was a very shady character. The whole company is shady. Why wouldn't they be like certain countries use that boat or that, that image of Disney and traffic all sorts of people, children
Yeah.
specifically?
And like this evidently, and you'll see in a second, it's, in my opinion, it's pretty easy for them to just like make it go away. Um, the following day, they watched from the shore as the Disney Wonder left port to set sail on its next cruise. Despite the case being an ongoing investigation, Disney considered the heartbreaking matter to be put to rest and laid flowers on the site of Deck 5, and had a small ceremony attended by some of the ship's crew. Unsatisfied with Disney's account of their daughter's disappearance, they hired a private investigator, Roy Ram, a former specialist of Scotland Yard, and sought the aid of Chester MP Chris Matheson and former Deputy Prime Minister Lord Prescott. What they unearthed outside the official investigation has disturbing implications as to the possible fate of Rebecca. Disney has always maintained that it was a rogue wave that swept her off Deck 5 sometime between the hours of 6 and 9 a.m. However, there are numerous inconsistencies with this account. One is that the weather and ocean conditions near to where the ship was located do not show any indication of any stormy weather, much less rogue waves. It would have needed to be over 100 feet high to sweep a person off that deck and above 6 foot walls that surrounded it. The primary piece of physical evidence in her disappearance was the video of her talking on an internal phone line at the time of her last known sighting. In his investigation, the private detective discovered that the CCTV footage had been cropped to hide the timestamp and the location.
Weird. Wow.
According to Disney, the footage was shot inside Deck 5, where she was allegedly swept overboard. After viewing the undoctored copy of the footage, the investigator learned that it was actually shot on Deck 1, was not close to the vicinity of her alleged accidental death. Copies of this footage have been denied to the family repeatedly. Another notable piece of evidence that Disney gave was the sandal that was allegedly recovered. However, this sandal had the name and cabin number of another individual altogether. Both the family and crew member insisted that the sandal were both the wrong size and not in the style of Rebecca at all. A few months after the disappearance, investigative journalist John Ronson of, of The Guardian sailed aboard the Wonder in an attempt to make sense of the incident. In talking with crew members, he uncovered suspicious and even sinister intentions behind Disney's explanation. One crew member disclosed, "Look, all I'm going to say is Disney knows exactly what happened. That phone call she had, it was taped. Everything here is taped. There's CCTV everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Disney have the tape." When asked about Rebecca, another crew member replied, "I don't know anything about it. It didn't happen. You know that's the answer that I've been told to give." Rebecca's family and friends from England described her as happy go lucky and energetic. Working for Disney would require one to be of an overall sunny disposition, or Disney wouldn't hire you if you weren't that sort of person. However, other crew members and close friends of Rebecca on the ship paint a more nuanced version of her character than her parents in the media. When asked about her, one crew member described her as a lovely girl with severe underlying sadness. In 2017, Tracy Medley, Rebecca's girlfriend and co-worker, she, I don't know if that means
Weird.
girlfriend as in like
Yeah, yeah. She's a lesbian, honest.
um and co-worker aboard the Wonder broke her silence on the events. She claims that night her and Rebecca engaged in a threesome with a male boyfriend. According to her, Rebecca had been distraught over their fiery and passionate relationship in the weeks prior. The shock of her sharing her lover with a male friend, or perhaps sexually
Hmm.
vying for her attention, might have been enough to swing Rebecca's usual sunny mood into a state of despair. She believes that Rebecca wanted off the ship and her life and climbed over the 6 foot railings to jump. Friends and family in England have vigorously denied that Rebecca took her own life. According to accounts of crew members, friends, family, and members of law enforcement, her case was a botched investigation with only 6 officially recorded interviews, withheld evidence, and no forensic investigation. It is objectively hard to be satisfied with the level of police work conducted. Good friend of one of the last people aboard the ship to see Rebecca alive offered his opinion to the BBC and stated, "I was never spoken to by any security or police at all. To call this an investigation would be an insult." In 2016, the private investigator uncovered a ripped pair of shorts with Rebecca's remaining personal effects from her cabin. He and other law enforcement believed this pointed to signs of a struggle, perhaps even sexual assault. Months after her disappearance, the family noticed that there had been activity on her bank account, as well as changed passwords on her Facebook. According to MP Matheson, "I believe there is sufficient evidence to indicate a crime may have well taken place. More than 7 years later, friends and family are still searching for answers to the same nagging questions. Although this case has gone largely cold, closure and answers are still being searched
That
for.
is fucked up. That's
Disney are
crazy.
Disney are wild. They're just like that. Just goes to show you, right? Like how
Say
scummy.
say that she did commit suicide. She unalived herself, right? Like, say that happened, right? Disney would want to cover it up. A Disney employee killed themselves, right? They'd want to cover that up, and that is just like the surface level, tip of the iceberg, what it could have been. Or they do this more often than people want to acknowledge, and then they just set it up like a movie and make it all look real, but it's actually fake, and like leading you away from the true story of what actually happened. But part of me does think that she could have got, just fell in love, and maybe wasn't infatuated with somebody, and then some shit happened, like they said, like a threesome type of thing. Because if you had people that were actually working with her and getting to know her, and then she just was like got an emotional state, was drunk, and then even was like thinking about it, and then even fell in, and then Disney would have to, because they have the footage, they definitely do.
Yeah, you see, I think that's kind of what like rubs me up the wrong way more than that is like they've obviously got some sort of a like contingency plan for this stuff because to me that doesn't sound like something that they just winged at a moment's notice. That was all
Yeah,
like, okay, so if this happens, we just say that we don't have any footage of anything, we don't record phone calls,
yeah,
we'll just like crop the footage we do have and say it was somewhere else.
just
End of
wild
story.
and sketchy. I don't trust the story at all. I don't trust Disney. I think Disney is a corrupt, creepy organization that has its hands in everything, and including, I think, child trafficking, in my opinion, and grooming and influencing kids. So, wouldn't put it past them to do something really shady, like either had a suicide or somebody going missing, where they knew what happened to her. I, yeah, fuck Disney.
Yeah, and it's wild as well. Like there was what over 3,000 people on that ship, and they'd
Yeah.
done 6 interviews.
Yeah, that is really weird. So I have a couple more, but maybe we'll cut it a little short because we talked a little more than we thought. These are little cases, like essentially ones I was going to talk about was there was a famous comic book artist that disappeared on a Caribbean dive. Um, Norman Lee. Yeah, he was a comic book like creator. He did stuff for like X-Men and the Avengers, and yeah, he just went missing in a vacation in the Caribbean, and they went for like a snorkeling excursion, and he just never came back. um which is scary in general. Like the currents maybe were too powerful, and they couldn't even locate his body, because while they that kind of went wrong when they went up getting like separated, and then he was just gone. He was separated from other participants of this snorkeling endeavor, this adventure, and yeah, he was gone forever. They don't know where his body is. Scary.
See that, like I don't know. Every time I hear stories like this, I'm like, "Ugh,
I know.
I
And then
just don't want to
also,
go anywhere ever again."
I just wanted to mention this one because their names are Hugh, Pham, Hugh Pham, and Hugh Tran. So they are, I think, Chinese. And their names match. Hugh Fan and Hugh Tran. They had the same first name and a rhyming last name. And they went missing on a Carnival cruise. And the only thing left was their shoes. And they were with their daughter and their granddaughter, and they think that they committed suicide, but they don't necessarily know. It's just speculated. Their son Michael Pham does not buy it. He said they were happy and planning a trip to Vietnam to see relatives. Oh, so they're Vietnamese. They're I'm not making fun of their names. It's just like it's kind of cute actually, that their names like literally match. This I only found one picture of them on the entire internet, and this is it. A cute Vietnamese couple, like they seem fairly happy. But maybe they're like, let's do it together. They hold hands and they jump off the cruise.
Do you know what's weird actually about that Norman Lee? case
Yeah,
because it seems pretty clear cut about like he just went missing and that was it. He
yeah,
just drowned or just was swept away or whatever.
yeah,
Um, was the fact that the FBI had gotten involved in that case and they took over from the Royal Cayman Islands police and they are offering a $10,000 reward. And there's actually a poster that they have, like, on their website and whatever.
yeah.
And it's a $10,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of Norman Lee and or the identification which leads to the conviction of those involved in his disappearance.
Weird. Why
Yeah,
would he be
and there's
taking? Did he
and,
have
like,
some
his family
money?
apparently have been on a big thing about, like, they haven't shared much with the family about why, but the FBI don't get involved in anything unless there's grounds to. Like, they'll try and be like, "Nothing to do with us, there's no crime to investigate, so we're not getting involved in someone drowning." It's,
That is weird.
yeah, but, like, there's been no, like, official apparently, like, they've been contacted several times, and they said that they won't comment on an open investigation, and it's still open to this day.
Yeah, even when I was reading on it, I kind of looked him up and like some of his images to show while we were like kind of talking about it. There's him like signing comic books,
Mhm.
and it's kind of weird. Like, cause I saw some stuff. I think that's slightly on that, but like most of the things were just like, oh, he like was disappeared in a snorkeling accident.
And it
So
sounds bad, right? Straight away, I was, like, thinking, I wonder, like, did he have some, like, pretty good, like, life insurance policy or something? His wife was like,
yeah,
"You know what? I'm fucking sick of you. I think I'm just gonna kill you.
yeah, I know.
I
Sick
think
of
I'd
you
rather
making those
lots
kids
of
comic
money."
books. Yeah. Or he was doing fairly well. I don't know what his net worth was or anything like that, but he maybe was making some decent money creating comic books and signing and doing all that stuff. Who knows? Bizarre. You had one more, did you not? You have
Yeah.
Brittany Drexel. All right,
Uh-huh.
get to her, and then I'll end it on one that is just bizarre and kind of like just it's a very strange case. It's not that long, so because like always for the fans to understand, I'll cut this from the audio, but for the video, we're always like we're gonna do an hour and a half, and it's like 2 hours in, so it's nothing new.
That's what we do.
Let's get to Brittany Drexel.
Okay, so Brittany Drexel, on the night of April 25th, 2009, 17-year-old Brittany left a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where she had been staying with her friends
This would have
unbeknownst
been
to
a
her
girl I would have
parents.
liked when I was like 15.
Yeah, same, same, same.
Like,
That would have been like
yeah.
everything I would have been looking for.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so she had been staying there with her friends unbeknownst to her parents during spring break. Now, straight away, right? And I'm not knocking her parents or anything like that,
Yeah.
but that's like massive red flags for me that like she was able to travel to South Carolina and her parents had no idea.
That's really weird. How did
Like
you not know? And where's she
this,
from?
um, mm, 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 where is she from originally? That's a good question.
Yeah. Take your time. I'm all the audio gets cut. The video you guys get it
New
raw.
York, Rochester, New York,
What? She's in Rochester and she got to where?
South Carolina.
That's pretty far.
And, like, I think she had told her parents,
It's
from
not even
what I
like the next
gather.
state over. Wow.
Yeah, she had asked several times could she go, and her mother refused since she didn't know any of the other teenagers well enough, and there was no accompanying adults on the trip. She also had a premonition that something bad would happen to her daughter. This led to arguments
That's
between the two
scary.
for several days. Then Brittany asked if she could go to a friend's house for a day or two to calm down, to which Dawn agreed. That day, Drexel left for South Carolina with the other students without telling her mother, which I just thought straight away to me that was just bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, so um, she walked to another hotel nearby, sent a text to her boyfriend letting him know she was headed back to her room, and she was never heard from again. That night around 8
Okay.
p.m., she left her friends at the Bar Harbor Hotel beachfront to walk 1.5 miles south down Ocean South Ocean Boulevard to visit a longtime friend who was staying at the Blue Water Resort. Security cameras at the resort showed her arriving. She was carrying a beige purse and wearing black and white tank top, flip flops, and shorts. It captured her leaving around 45 minutes later at 8:45 p.m. She was texting her boyfriend, who had stayed in the Rochester area because of work commitments. They had been texting back and forth, but around 9:15 her texts suddenly stopped and he began calling her friends in Myrtle Beach to see if they knew where she was or what had happened and why she wasn't answering. When that failed, he called her mother, Dawn, who had not known her daughter was in Myrtle Beach until she was contacted.
Oh my god, what do you think your daughter is? Like, this is
Like,
the issue. Like, she could have probably survived, and it's sad because even looking at some of these images, she just looks like, someone I could have known. You know what I mean? Like, they
mhm,
all kind of do, actually. Like, just people that you would know in your own life, and it's just kind of it's bizarre looking at photos of some of these people and and just picturing that they're just gone. Nobody knows where they are. Like, no one in their own life, and they could either be dead or, like I said, or just someone's personal object is
which is so
fucking
scary.
frightening.
Um, Myrtle Beach police began looking for her the following morning. They located the security camera footage from the Blue Water Resort and found the friends whom she had visited. The last person who had reported seeing her before she left was identified as a friend called Peter, a 20-year-old nightclub promoter whom she had known from the Rochester area and who was also vacationing in Myrtle Beach. They had apparently met at a local nightclub the night before. After police interviewed him and the men with whom he was sharing his hotel room, they said that no one has been ruled in or out, adding that they did not have any persons of interest. Police searched her hotel room, finding all of the clothes she had packed, but not her purse or cell phone. The phone's network pings were tracked on a path leading 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach to an area along US Route 17 near the Georgetown Charleston County line. The pings had stopped abruptly in the early morning of April 26th. Areas near Areas near there and around Myrtle Beach, where the body might have been disposed of, were searched for 11 days. In 2011, police searched an apartment in Georgetown County, but that effort did not yield any information. Um, so her mother and this Peter dude apparently had several confrontations on the television show Dr. Phil, during which Peter often expressed frustration at the damage to his reputation. Dawn, who had driven to Myrtle Beach the day after her daughter's disappearance, eventually relocated there permanently to be close to where her daughter had been last seen and better monitor the progress of the investigation. In 2014, a newspaper article on the case's fifth anniversary, she expressed her theory that Brittany had defied what? Her theory that Brittany had defied her to go to Myrtle Beach because she had been promised something of interest, such as a modeling job. Dawn believed her daughter had been trafficked, but the Myrtle Beach police did not believe this was a strong possibility. Due, due to their claim of little or no trafficking taking place in their jurisdiction, right?
That never happens here, trust
Right?
me. I'm
And then
involved with it, but it doesn't happen.
I'm going to follow this up with something pretty funny. A 2019 report conducted by the South Carolina Human Trafficking Task Force rated the county as the number one county in South Carolina for reported human
Yeah,
trafficking
so they're like,
victims.
no, we don't we'll have that happening here, and they're like, hey, we're making money off of it, most likely.
Here's where it
Um,
gets kind of weird, though. The end bit of this,
her
and
remains were found.
it's quite recent. In early May 2022, Raymond Moody, a 62-year-old registered sex offender, turned himself into the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office on the basis of an obstruction of justice charge. Police had first considered Moody a person of interest in her disappearance as early as 2012. He confessed to the crime and provided the location of her remains. The
And they
FBI,
found her remains, right?
they
That's
excavated the site over the next 3
fucked.
days. May 11th, 2022, human remains were located buried in the woods off of a gated private drive outside Georgetown,
And they
about
proved that it was
4
her.
feet into the ground. and they were identified as Brittany's remains through DNA and dental records.
That's fucked. So he definitely did it.
The arrest warrant alleged that Brittany had been strangled and then buried in the morning of April 26, 2009. Georgetown County Sheriff's Office, along with Drexel's family, made the information public, along with the announcement of his arrest. Moody was arrested again and charged with murder, kidnapping, and first degree criminal sexual misconduct, all alleged to have occurred on the day she disappeared. On October 19th, 2022, he pled guilty to all charges and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison with an additional two consecutive terms of 30 years each.
That's fucked. It's
I
just, it is
there's a couple of
fucked.
really good YouTube like mini documentary things like, and it shows all the interrogation footage of him, and
Mhm.
it was actually his he was with a chick for years,
Yeah.
and she started something I can't remember exactly, but you can watch like the interview she does with the cops. She basically ratted him out. She went and she was like, "Look, I know that he was convicted as a sex offender, like 20 years ago or whatever, or 30 years ago." But she was like, only until recently he made some remarks about something, and she was like, I can't shake the feeling that he knows more about what was going on. And
It's
from
just,
there, it just spiraled. And then eventually he just kind of comes in once he realizes he's been caught. And he's just so casual. He's like, yeah, so, just killed her and whatever and strangled. I done it like this. And they were like, did you do anything else to her body? He was like, oh, no, no, Jesus, I wouldn't like, decapitate her or like do anything like that. Or I wouldn't, I'm not sick.
oh, but he probably raped her.
Yeah, he like raped her and done whatever and murdered her,
And
buried
that's
her.
what's fucked because like all the other cases we don't know what happened, and like this definitely looks like some chick that I would have known as a teenager that I
Yeah.
probably would have tried to get with or something like that. Just she has that very like small town kind of girl look, and it's kind of disturbing once you find okay, this is someone that we actually know what happened to her. Her remains were found in this creepy bald
Look at
looking
that
dude,
freak.
yeah, that probably kidnapped her, took her, and then did horrible things to her and her body while she was alive and conscious. And the fact that, like, this young girl, and this happens more often than it should not happen at all, but it happens way too often, and people are not really paying attention, is this idea of like how often people go missing, taken from somebody, and then used for horrible things. And like the last thing this young girl sees is this horrible, creepy, one-eyed looking man choking
The,
her to death.
like he does have the look of
Like a
like
serial killer, dude.
yeah,
Where's
with
that
that
one eye? That's
weird
so
lazy eye
scary.
thing or
Yeah.
whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, he looks like what you would picture a serial killer to look like. It's just frightening. This one, I wanted you to cover it because it's like it's just disturbing. I didn't want to read it.
If anyone like I know it sounds weird, but like if anyone's like interested by the sound of that case, like I feel like we done it justice in what we said, but
Yeah,
it's interesting to see some of the interrogation footage and stuff, and you kind of hear more like in-depth
yeah,
details, but like he's so casual about the whole thing. Like you can tell he knows
yeah,
that he's fucked. So I think he just kind of is like, you know what, I'm probably just better off just saying it like it is now because I'm already fucked. So I've been caught. I can't get out
yeah.
of it.
And
I might
some
as
of
well
them
just be.
like living in that and be
And he's
like,
like,
why?
he's like
Yeah,
sipping his coffee and
yeah.
it's all like chill. He's not handcuffed or anything. He's just like chilling out.
And these sociopaths, right? They don't feel empathy
Freak.
for other people or what they've done, right? They only revel in it.
Dude,
It's
there's a side by
frightening.
side picture of her. It's that picture you have of her with like she's wearing like some sort of blue top.
Yeah, yeah. This.
Yeah, that picture, there's a side by side of that and then him with the fucking one eye.
Uh,
And
it's
I swear to God,
frightening.
just to look at that, like, and think that freak,
Mm.
like, kidnapping her when she's like, what age is she?
17.
Like,
Yeah, scary. It's just frightening, and that we know what happened to her. The other
he would have been what
cases,
in his like 50s or some shit.
yeah. And even with the other cases, like, and I knew this was going to happen when we are going through this episode, is looking at some of the images of all these mostly women that like went missing, and there's way more. And if we're kind of discussing the famous cases, they're all like white women. That's why I want to make it the point of how many other people do go missing of color and stuff like that, because it's the less dead, so to speak. People just don't pay attention to it as much, especially people from impoverished areas. They don't pay attention to it or care. But as soon as it's a beautiful young white woman with blue eyes, all these chicks mostly that are the more famous cases are blondes or blue-eyed young women. Like if you go through the majority of these photos, it's very much the case. So it is kind of, I don't know, but it is still frightening and bizarre to like look at these images of these people and think that they're just gone. They've disappeared. They're not here anymore.
And it's right. This I don't mean this to sound like sick or whatever, but there's times I look at these things and I I try to put myself in their shoes in the sense of like, I don't know, like that girl must have been just like walking wherever back to her
Yeah, I
hotel or
know.
whatever. And it's like, how does that even happen? Like, does he just walk up and go, I'm just kidnapping you and that's it, you have no choice? Or like just that
I
whole
know.
thing, like did she
I know, and
know
yeah, and we talked
beforehand
about
what he
this
was
too.
doing?
We both do that. Where I since a young age been super into true crime, and I've talked about the law teacher that I knew that would like make us. He would like pick our brains. When I was like in grade 11, it was a law teacher that used to be a lawyer, and even when we did this, what got me more fascinated with researching this stuff is even like the Paul Bernardo case. We did the whole Paul Bernardo case, and he made us like think about what would happen, and he would want us to solve it. So we did like a disturbing case where eventually I like to cover it on the show, but it's disturbing some of these cases, like Holly Jones, the little girl that went missing in Toronto, and then her body parts were found in suitcases cut up all around Toronto Island and stuff like that. And like
This is just
frightening.
fucked.
And then we went through the whole case of him, like what made him snap. He was looking at child porn and then it just snapped in his head and he went out there and the first little girl he saw, he just took her, no even thought to it. Like it's gonna be a fucked up case. We might end up covering it because I don't think Billy's brain can handle it, but it's like really disturbing where we have to be semi-serious, which we have to be for certain cases, like when me and Billy did the Highway of Tears. It's all about Indigenous women going missing and stuff like that. That's an older episode, but it some of these episodes do make my skin crawl
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
more than
and like
others.
I'm looking at this guy, like, and even in his 60s, he's a big motherfucker.
Yeah, he's a big
Like if
dude,
you can,
big,
you
scary
can't really, it
looking.
doesn't do it justice, but there's a couple of images of him coming in on a crutch
Yeah,
into the courtroom and stuff, and he's like chained at the wrists and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'd probably have a like even a hard time. I don't know how physically, smashed up
yeah,
he is now, but I'm like, he looks like a big motherfucker. And like the
yeah.
idea of him like grabbing, like it's just so fucking grim, like, but
I know, and
her like
like,
small
yeah,
body
yeah,
and
she's
like he's like
tiny.
fucking
Yeah, just like I know, it's just creepy. And it's I'm sure it makes people, and that's why women should be careful, and women walk and like in they are like the Take Back the Night was is like a protest that feminists do, but it's not even a feminist movement. It's just about like women being like not wanting to be scared, walking the streets at night, and they shouldn't be scared, but we shouldn't also live in a society where we let criminals off with like nothing, and you know it's gonna get
like
me into a like
I've been
people
out
have
sometimes
terrible
like
fucking mental health. I wonder why.
for like, maybe I might bring the dog out like later at night when it's kind of gotten dark, just for
Yeah,
a walk, like around the block or whatever. And there's
yeah,
times like where I'll see like a woman or a girl, and I can tell she's like visibly like trying to be like,
yeah.
maybe trying to see like, am I some sort of weird fucking
I
sex
know, and
murderer?
and you think about it just
And I
yeah,
feel bad and weird, and I'm like,
yeah,
like if I cross the street, does that make this look weirder? Like if
yeah,
I
yeah.
do anything now, do I make am I making this look like I'm up to something?
I know it's true, and bring up even Bernardo, right? We're talking about like what happens. He was just waiting at a bus stop in Scarborough for women to get off the bus and then just chloroform, or like just take them and force them because he was the Scarborough rapist before he ever turned into a serial killer, and he would just hide and without and so ballsy and narcissistic and risky that he would do it out
That's
in the
literally giving
open.
me goosebumps.
I know. One of the somebody in the chat while we're going live to Twitch was like, "I have a daughter, and these things like this scare the fuck out of me." And like it should. It's scary. What you know, yeah, it's well, let's get into the last case because it's frightening, but it's kind of really weird and strange. Let's say, did a wolf or a bear or other animal attack and drag away a 2-year-old boy from a popular Idaho campsite in 2015? This is weird. Dioro Coons and his parents. His name is Dior, literally Deorr. Dior. Coons and his parents, Jessica Mitchell and Vernal Coons. I think I have an image of them. Yeah, I think this is the. I want to make sure. Very bizarre names for these. Dior is a really. I've never even seen the spelling of this name, and have no idea. I just want to look this up if it's there. Yeah, this is the same. It's just like it's weird because they look like normal. This sounds weird. They're just white people. There's like normal looking, kind of a little bit trailer park-ish, small town white people, and they just have strange names. Like the kid's name is Dior. That's a story. Is that weird? Is that weird? Have you ever heard that name? Or am I the only one that's like
Nope.
Dior and Vernal? Vernal. Weird. We're enjoying the wilderness on their camping vacation. I thought it would be something different to get off the beach and get into something like, because this happens all the time. I'm sure during vacations, even going on to a trailer park or something like, and eventually we'll be talking about stuff like that when it comes to first class horror and some of the movies that we'll get into. But one day the parents left on a walk, saying they left Dior with his grandfather, great grandfather. So this guy's like,
I've heard of this case before.
he's like just in a chair, and there's like he's like half dead, like or he is dead, like a vacation, what is that, Bernie's or whatever, and then just putting him on this old guy's lap and be like, "We're going for a walk," and they're going to like smoke crack or something. Sorry for if anyone listens to this, that is part of this family. I'm kidding. I'm making assumptions. Who conversely thought that the parents were with him when they returned, the boy was missing. Once the parents reported the disappearance, local and state authorities descended upon the area, trying to find any evidence of little Dior. Neither the great grandfather nor the grandparents knew. While considered suspects, they have not been charged. Some experts have been suspicious of the parents' behavior, saying that the mother in particular exhibit erratic behavior and apparently dislike being a mother. So if somebody found out, if there was people that knew of her behavior and not liking taking care of this kid and being one of those parents that, like, didn't choose to, have an abortion or whatever at a young age and had a kid and maybe with a guy that she didn't even necessarily want to be with, any of those cases of like, and then she's resentful and then it comes out on the kid and then something happens.
There's so I remember hearing about this story. I don't know the exact because I think there was a pretty big. I don't know if it was like Netflix or one of those companies done a docu series or a documentary about this case a while back,
Yeah.
and it was like one of those things that went like crazy viral. It was everywhere.
Weird. I'm
There's
surprised I haven't
there's
heard about this.
something there's something weird about that case. So if you look at in that documentary, they have like the previously like unreleased police interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
There's something.
Yeah, they seem sketchy. Even
There's
when I was reading through, like, even the small little article I had, because all these are like cases that we didn't want to do a full episode on that are based on people going on vacations. And mostly one of the most bizarre and strange things that happen during a vacation is, you know, people go missing. And they're like, it's the parents that attorney. This is like the bizarre thing of why I brought this case up is the attorney for the parents said that a bald eagle carried away the child. That's their excuse. The guy's like, you know what? They're really loving parents. They just wanted to go for a walk to have a nice conversation and leave their kid behind with the great grandfather that obviously has no recollection of this because why, you know what I mean? How he would have saw the kid disappear or, and this is an interpretation of what he could look like now. Well, not
Um,
now, but years later.
Horror at the Campground, Real Life Nightmare is the name of the
Weird.
movie or TV series, whatever it is. But like there was, and I remember in that, I can only remember like little bits of it, but like there was shit I think where they said, I can't remember which of them said it, but they were like, "Oh yeah, there's a wolf's den near to where we were, and
How did you guys know that?
it's home to 15 or 16 wolves, and that might be something to." So like the police went and like searched this den, and like they didn't find anything to do with any sort of
Of
they
course.
found bones and different things, but it was all animal based, or like there was
Yeah.
no child brought in here, by the way.
Someone in the chat commented and said the dad looks upset and the mom looks emotionless. And if you look at this image, also look at her face. That body language shows it all. She looks like she's in disgust.
So who's the great granddad, or whatever? Because I remember him being like super fucking creepy and weird.
I'm trying to see
Have
if
you got pictures of the four of them? They're fucking scary looking.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, he looks bizarre. I thought I had it, but I'm gonna bring it up. I just found it. It's kind of weird, and maybe he had some part in it. I don't know, and they like wanted to get rid of the kid, but yeah, that's
So I think the guy down in the bottom right, that's Isaac, whatever. He's like the friend.
yeah,
He was never apparently, I don't think ever named as like any sort of like suspect or whatever.
yeah.
But I want to say, what's his name? That guy, Isaac. 'Cause I feel like he had some sort of weird story as well.
Yeah, where's baby Dior? Yeah, I see there's a couple things of this guy. Um Update on suspect. Dior Jr. It's not bringing up his name. Oh, Isaac, yeah, Renwand. I had nothing to do with Dior's disappearance, so they blamed him. He's a freakish looking guy in some of these fucking photos. Can you say
So,
inbred?
yeah, so you had so the dad, he claims he was camping with his son when his son disappeared. He says he trusts Jessica, which is the mother, 100%. He believes that the child was abducted from the campsite, says he left him with the granddad for 15 or 20 minutes. In that time, he disappeared. Um,
That's the Isaac guy. He's the scary looking dude.
yeah, he is weird looking.
He looks like a
Um,
Neanderthal. His forehead takes off most of his fucking head.
So then you have the mother. She says the same thing, that they left him with the granddad. Um she said she trusts the dad, like her boyfriend or whatever, and his
Yeah.
story. She believes that the child wandered away and passed away in the mountains near the campsite.
Kid just and who knows? We might be being super rude and objectively basing our opinions on our assumptions. But like
And
I
right, so
don't know. There's just some weird energy I'm
yeah,
feeling
and
from the
like there's
photos.
another
And
thing about it, like they're essentially in a way like being like, well, we left him with his grandparent, and like he went missing from there or whatever. But then they also go on to say that, so that's it's Jessica, the mother, it's her grandfather is who it
yeah.
is, Bob Walton. They also went on to say that he was an old 76-year-old confused man who was on oxygen.
So why would they leave the
Yeah,
kid with
that's
the
exactly my
decrepit
question.
old man? That's bizarre. Um,
And the granddad said
scary.
that he doesn't trust uh, Isaac, and he thinks it
Mm,
was him. And then Isaac is said to be have slight developmental disability.
I can tell.
Um, he was Grandpa Bob's former neighbor and fishing buddy. He's the only camper that weekend who law enforcement says hasn't changed his story at all.
Hmm. Which is like kind of convincing that maybe he didn't do anything, but that they could blame it on him because he's a
Yeah, because I
guy
think
with
he was the
mental
only one who was
deficiencies.
never he was the only one I think who police never pulled in and went like, "He's a person of interest." Then
Mm.
his name was never like, but the 2 parents and the
I don't know.
grandfather
It
were
is
like,
usually someone close to the family, if not like even with certain abuse cases and stuff like that. It's usually a family member. Bizarre.
I always
You
find
know,
it weird though, right? Don't you feel like if you had a kid, um, I always find it weird, like, the way parents do that thing where it's like, "Yeah, no, I think he was, like, eaten by wolves."
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Why would
I'm
you just
pretty
like,
sure that's what happened. Yeah, I think because we left
yeah,
him with my granddad, and he's like, he can't
crazy old
see.
pa?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
can't see or hear or walk or anything, and like he's like
He
basically like a
felt
dead
licks on
body.
his face and he thought it was the kid licking him, but it was the wolf or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? He's like,
Yeah, and you're like, okay, so you're basically saying that you brought the grandfather out, and he was basically like a dead body. So you
yeah,
decided to leave your 2-year-old
we can't have
child
the
with
pet
him,
burgers.
and you went walking into the woods wherever you went, and
Yeah.
thought that was like okay. And then when you came back and realized he was gone, you were like, huh, must have got eaten up in the mountains by
It's just
wolves.
a weird. It seems like they definitely somehow set this up. I'm
Because
not
yeah,
saying it's the
and I
parents, but
think
I don't know.
a lot of the theories aren't actually that the parents like murdered him or done anything like that. A lot of
Yeah.
the theories are um they probably weren't like looking after him in the sense of like maybe he fell or something happened to him and they went shit. We need to
Yeah,
like
I could see that. You know how often that happens in that in law class. We talked about one case of a dad that was bathing his kid and then accidentally hit like dropped him or something like that. And like he suffered bad whoops, sorry about that. It's supposed to be another case we're gonna get to. A guy saved some people, but that the dad, yeah, he dropped the baby by accident, and then they tried to cover it up, but nothing made sense, and it was literally just a mistake. But he got like not manslaughter. I think the baby did die. It was like yeah, I think he might have got manslaughter. That the baby suffered an injury, like a head injury, and they said it was like he fell off his chair or something like that. But then when they investigated, they found out the dad like dropped him in the bathtub and then tried to cover it up and stuff like that. And then it was like
mm,
and how often stuff like that could happen. And the kid trips and bashes open his head, and then the mother already doesn't want the kid, and they're like, and they're devastated, and and in some case, but they have to clean it up and get rid of it or get rid of the body. I don't know. It just seems very sketchy, and then it seems like who knows that the grandfather was part of it and helped them
yeah,
cover it up
yeah.
and it's very scary. And it honestly, if anybody has any strange stories of being on vacation, you can send it to me at strangerpodcast@gmail.com. Even if it's for next year, whatever, like send me some emails and we'll do like a Patreon episode. Like I said, people can send stories, and I've talked to a couple fans that want to come on the show, like saying like, "Oh, I'd love to like pop on the show." And I said that maybe for Patreon, for all the people that subscribe to Patreon, eventually we'll do like, well, we'll bring you on for 10, 15 minutes and you can like tell a story, and we'll put it up on Patreon, stuff like that, where I've had at least two fans that wanted to tell. One guy had a UFO
Pretty cool.
story. So if that's going to draw people more towards supporting the show, even though there's tons of other content, like we can start doing stuff like that, and fans can come on and tell a spooky story or encounter with a ghost or a UFO or anything like that. I think would be a lot of fun for the fans. But I knew this would get dark, but as soon as you started diving down, especially with me and you, and how Billy would find some way to make this a little lighter, but once you start really diving into it, it's like spooky, and it makes your skin crawl, and I'm the type of person, which I'm sure a lot of our fans are, that try to put themselves in the shoes of these people and understand what it was like to
Yeah,
have
like
this happen
I
or
didn't
go
expect it
missing.
to get like I didn't even realize till you just said that there, like how kind of serious the episode got. But it's
Yeah,
just such a, I think it's such a relatable and like freaky thing in a way, in the sense of
yes,
like,
it is.
everybody goes on vacation. Like you're going on a
Mm,
trip on Friday,
yeah,
And it's like the idea of like these people are going on these trips with
To have
no
fun and have this a great experience and to have time off work, and then something very scary or like horrible, horrifying happens. Like to me, I would rather, to be honest, in what I've heard about what the sex rings are like, or even the darker, very dark conspiracy stuff when it comes to adrenochrome.
Mhm.
I believe it. You don't have to. I don't give a shit if people don't believe that that is possible. They've, in my point of view, admitted and showed us enough imagery and symbolism that they do these things. But I would rather be shot in the fucking head than be
Same.
in some sort of grotesque trafficking ring, or your body being used for God knows what, you
Yeah,
know,
just blow my head off.
and then take my organs if you really need to, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be alive. And it's frightening. And we're going to get into even more scary and dark and disturbing things throughout the show. It's going to happen. I have plans to do some very dark episodes at some point. Even when there's soon, we'll be talking about the dark web. Billy has to be on that one because I feel like he'll be able to make light heart like just be lighthearted with some of these episodes. But that's what we're doing. Is if fans know, it's just sometimes I'm like, it gets dark, and then I'm gonna have like nightmares about being on some fucking ship, some ghost ship,
I
with
swear
all
to
these
God, right? While we
passengers
were
I've gone
recording
missing.
this, just to give people a little bit of context, as we're about to finish this episode up
Yeah,
right now, it is 12:52 a.m. in Ireland
Jesus.
right now, right?
Yeah,
And as we were talking about some of these stories, and I haven't had this feeling in a long time, but there's nobody else in the house, only the dog, and
yeah,
he's down in the kitchen, so I'm on the third floor, and like a while back there, I heard him barking, and we have cameras like all inside the house and outside the
yeah.
house, and I can check them from my phone, and I just see him barking like at the back door. He's just
Scary.
standing on a chair, just staring at the back door, barking. And straight away, I got this weird, like, chill of like, oh, what if there's like someone at my back door? This is how this shit happens.
That's scary, yeah, and then you're taken, and then I have to be like, I
You,
have
you have to
very
come
few
tired
set
and
of
find
skills.
me.
I go there and get drunk and walk around fucking bars till I find
If
you,
you
and then
went,
you just
if
get
you go missing or anything happens to you guys at the cottage, I'll give you my word that I'll fly to Canada and I'll find you.
and then you'll come to my wedding.
Yeah, we'll get you back in time. We'll
Yeah.
find you and bring you back.
Like some hangover shit. Yeah, and this we were like planning on covering this within an hour and a half, but like me and Aaron, considering our friendship and how close we are, we always dive down these kind of rabbit holes, and I enjoy that we do it. And for Aaron's sake, I always try to be like, okay, well, like stick to this timestamp so we can actually like do it this justice. But just because the time difference, and like you said, it's like 1 a.m. there. So
Yeah,
we'll
when
bring
I
it
get
to a
talking, I can't help
close.
it though.
I know. That's why I said, I was like, yeah, I was like, this is gonna be at least 2 hours. And you're like, if we can nail it down in 1 hour, half, like an hour and a half, or 1 hour 40, awesome. And I'm like, sweet, we can do that. And that's like when we start really getting into conversations, I can talk for another half an hour just about the
Yeah,
idea of going missing on vacation. Like even just talking about like how spooky and scary and frightening that is probably for every person. So beware next time you book a cruise or want to go on vacation to Cuba or something like that. Like to end it on this, my cousin, the same one that went to Japan, went to Cuba after we already went. He's the same one I went to Cuba with. He went to like Mexico, Cuba, whatever. He went with a buddy that I also knew and met through him, and they went off the resort because they got close to this guy on the resort that worked on the resort, one of like the employees. They go off the resort. I will tell people some stories of my own of going off the resort for a Patreon episode sometime, because it's something I probably wouldn't talk about in the main show. And and then so they went to this house, and the guy said they offered them food, like this really shitty soup. It looked like it was like some of the only food they had. And then they met this guy's dad, I think, or grandfather or something like that. I can't remember the whole story, but what I do remember is the guy showed them, I think it might have been the guy that actually worked at the resort, a picture of his niece, and then asked them how much they would pay.
okay.
And they were like, we need to go back to the resort. Like, we're not doing this. And so the guy was like, look, this is my niece. How much would you pay for her to have her for an hour or whatever? Fucked up, eh? In Cuba off the resort in somebody's home that lived in Cuba.
Yeah, that shit's freaky. That reminds me of
Yeah.
like I watched Infinity Pool like last week or whatever for the
Is it
first
worth
time.
watching?
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of that, like that
I'll
idea of
watch it.
like, you have this couple and they're on this resort and they meet this chick and her like boyfriend or whatever, which is
Mhm.
Mia Goth's character. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, no, let's go off resort and like do this fun stuff. And you can tell the other couple are like, we're kind of told not to go off resort. That's like a really bad thing. And she's like, no, it'll be fun. And it's like the Wild West. You can like get anything, drugs and sex, and it's really, really fun. And then you can just see how quickly that can just go like,
Yeah, if it, I like Mia Goth. I do. I've gotten like recently into her, considering some of the films like X and stuff like that. I wouldn't mind cover if I do enjoy it and I watch it. I wouldn't mind covering it. We have tons of other stuff that we got on the list, but let's let Aaron go to bed, and hopefully not have nightmares. But I hope everyone enjoyed episodes like this episode or all episodes. But I hope you guys enjoy something a little more serious, because there's gonna be times where we talk about these scary, obscure, and strange circumstances and disturbing things that happen in this world that we live in, this reality that we exist in. So I hope people enjoy it, because I hope it makes you think twice, though. I kind of want to make you scared this summer, especially at the end. People are planning vacations, and I hope it freaks you out, because a lot of people sometimes go when they go in the winter, right? It's like winter time, and they'll go. We went to Cuba in February, where it's like snowy and cold here, so but I hope everyone enjoyed that. Aaron, if you want to shout out
cancel
your
all,
stuff,
cancel all
cancel
your
all your
vacations.
vacations. Yeah, don't get trafficked. Especially if you were blonde and blue eyed, it will at least look for you. Anyone else, I doubt it. But and if you're blonde and blue eyed and you do go missing, at least you'll be on the internet on some news story, and 100 people will look for you for about a week, and then your family will care.
That's the only good thing
Sick.
about being like a early 30s, balding dude. Is like I won't ever have to
Nobody's
deal with that
looking
at
for
least anyway. Nobody's gonna fucking traffic
you.
me.
Yep. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. Give us 5-star rating reviews. And obviously with the show, because who knows if we do get any sort of shadow ban, considering we're filming this and it's coming out of Canada in the communist regime that I live in, and people are like, it's not that bad. I'm like, okay, we can't read the news, man. It's being censored on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, because they want to skew and manipulate the news to fit the leftist narrative. And I'm not right or left. I think they're both fucking wrong. But like literally, last week I got the notification you can no longer view news on Instagram due to the policies of Canada. Da, 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 da. Um,
Which is
Crazy.
wild.
Yeah, that is. People want to talk about like fascism stuff, because fascism and communism and socialism, all these different ideologies are very much the same at heart. They usually have one person conducting and ruling over that said society. Communists about sharing, but then you still have someone that manipulates and controls that whole system, and then uses people for labor and all that stuff. So it's not good either way. And then fascism, yeah, you understand fascism, what that is, nationalism. They still control all the media, and they program people to view a specific narrative. And if the government is spewing some sort of narrative, it's probably not the good thing. It's probably the opposite. It's probably something
Yeah,
evil.
that's true.
So everyone be aware, because I feel like it's gonna get worse. I feel like the government has done an active war on its people all around the world. So hopefully it doesn't get bad. But I'm gonna record this show until a direct energy weapon hits my house, I guess.
You just get taken off of everything. You just won't be able to have internet or anything.
I started putting all my episodes slowly onto a 2 terabyte fucking thing. So I'm starting to do it just in case a nuclear bomb does hit, and then someone maybe can find that years to come and be like,
You're
"Wow,
gonna have
listen to this
to.
shit podcast."
What do they call them fucking things?
These
Is
right
a
these
time
they listen
capsule?
to it. It's like listen to these racist, bigot, right wing conspiracy theories.
Is that
Oh,
what it's
time
called?
capsule. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do that
I'll
with the
leave
hard
some of
drive
my
and put it down
sperm
in
in
the
case
ground.
someone wants to like clone me and then make the podcast again. They clone me and then put me in a room, and they're like, we really like that awful fucking bad human podcast you created when you were actually alive. Now you're cloned and can replicate it for the world. and the new generation of AI robot creatures.
Geez, you really have this thought out, don't you?
So I hope everyone enjoys the show. And like I said when me and Billy were on the mermaid episode, is like we were trying to make interesting content, but also make people not think about how horrible the world is. But for some reason, it always leads back to it.
It's horrible.
Yeah, wake up, stand up. Nothing's gonna change until the people change. Because let me end it on this, because people know I get political. I was gonna do a video about this anyways, because I'm a fucking loser. I give my opinion out to the internet. But I was gonna be like, governments have never granted the citizens or the people that they rule over freedom. People have had to take it. So remember that.
With that
All
shit
right.
on a t-shirt.
Everybody, stay strange, fuckers. Au revoir. Be careful of the fucking
Bye.
boat trip you take this summer.